Perfect. Okay. Can everybody see and hear me clearly? Give me a thumbs
Yes.
up if you can. Perfect. Okay. So thank you for joining the 9-week class. We're going to be meeting together on Saturdays. You guys have the days we're going to be meeting. It's going to be 3 days on, 1 week off, 3 weeks on, 1 week off, so on and so forth over the next 3 months. During this time, we're going to be covering Yusui Reiki level 1, 2, as well as shamanic healing. I will be disclosing the workbook in alignment with what we're covering. So this way everybody stays at the same pace, we're on the same page, and our questions don't get ahead of ourselves. I've done a few group classes in the past and even just like little mini groups, kind of like this, where I find that if I give the whole workbook, we tend to jump ahead a little bit. So just know that I'll give it to you in the sections in which we're covering, and that's just to kind of keep us all on track. Throughout the program, as we get into the actual hands-on work, you're going to have the opportunity in order to get the certification to practice on other people, right? So this could be friends, it could be family. If you want to book a session for mentoring with me and you want me to be one of yours, that can count towards it too. I know some of you that have paid in full have that 60-minute session with me already. Feel free to know that you can always purchase more of those if you want more one-on-one time, okay? So let me jump into sharing my screen really quick so we can go over some housekeeping basically, right? Let me make sure I have everything. Okay, perfect. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Woohoo. Okay. So as I just wanted to kind of walk you guys through, if you don't know how to access the group, because we're going to be utilizing it, I'm going to be posting to this the day of our Zoom calls or the day before our Zoom calls with the link, with the updated workbooks. You can find everything here. In this, though, you can also ask questions. If you're like, hey, I'm struggling to understand XYZ, all you have to do is create a post. This platform is private to us and the other students, okay? So know that anything you post here is not allowed, one, to be shared outside of the group, and two, it's a safe space. So this is a space where if someone asks a question and you're like, well, that's a dumb question, just keep the opinion to yourself. There's no dumb questions. Everything is welcome. Everybody's at a different place on their journey and everybody brings a different lens. So sometimes these questions can open up the door to a very deep dive down rabbit holes that you're like, wow, I didn't even think of that. So that's going to be something that we're going to touch on today, because in day one, we're going over, as you see here, when we go to our curriculum, I also have that outlined if you guys want to kind of keep up with what we're covering. So we're covering all of this information today. We're covering the 5 bodies, higher self, future self, ego, meditation techniques, breath work, and we're even going to dive a little bit into some videos that have to do with like quantum physics and energy, sacred geometry, things like that. So this is going to be the class where it's an intro into what energy in our world and our day-to-day life is, but it's also going to help bring it into a more tangible form. So when we dive into Reiki, not our next class, but our 3rd class, you are going to have a much deeper understanding of why we practice Reiki in that way. Make sense? Cool. Okay. At any time, if you have questions, ask your questions. Just raise your hand. That's fine. And I'll like shut my mouth because I want this to be interactive. If you're sitting here listening to me ramble for 3 hours, you're probably going to end up with a fried brain. I find that the more students interact, the more they ask questions, the more that dialogue's open, the more we all get out of the experience, because again, you're bringing your lens in this moment to it. And later you might forget to ask that question on there. So don't be shy. Raise your hand. The only thing I ask is please don't ask things in regards to your personal journey. Like, hey, if I'm experiencing this, should I do that? That's something for a one-on-one time. Like, let's leave this to be a space where we can kind of dive into the general education of what energy is and kind of explore questions about that. For any one-on-one questions with personal life experiences, things like that, save that for our time when it's one-on-one. Does that make sense? Cool.
Yeah, just one question on logging into the
The
kind of
website.
chat thing. Yeah.
So if you go to the top corner, because it can be confusing. I don't know why it's like this. I wish I could change it, but I can't. So when you click on login, it will say sign up. And a lot of times we don't see right underneath the login option. If you click there, you can log in through the email that you have set up for your membership. And if you need that email, it's going to be the same email that you received the confirmation of the Zoom call to. Okay. So you can log in with Google through that, or if you did it through your Facebook, but you're going to go there. And if it's giving you issues logging in, just let me know.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to figure.
Okay. And
Okay.
I'll look at it after today's class because sometimes you just I have a duplicate of your contact in my system, and that might be why. So once I merge the two, you'll be able to log in. Cool. Any questions on the site, how to navigate the group, anything of that nature? No? Okay.
I haven't done that yet, so.
I know Hawa has. I'm sorry if I say your name wrong. I don't think in all the years we've worked together, I will ever say it correctly, but I'm going to keep trying.
So I'll have to fool around with it. I might have questions another time.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. And so if you guys go on there and you're having trouble posting, just let me know. Just shoot me a message. I've added all of you to it. So you all, when you do log in with the email that you have associated with the program, when you do log in through that, you'll see it, but it will be underneath the education tab. Okay. Sorry about all the dinging. It's all of us on my website. That's what all that dinging is you hear in the background. Okay. So you go to education, it'll be groups, and here you can see the curriculum. If moving forward you have questions, just shoot me an email. It's easy peasy to fix.
Okay.
So all of you have had healing sessions with me, so you're not unaware of my personality and my very blunt demeanor. Okay. I will say that as we move through the program, you're probably going to have a side of me that's much more like stoic than the playful side you see in energy healing, because there's a lot of information to cover. So this 9-week program is jamming my 6-7 months of my 8-month program into these sessions. So we're covering a lot of information in a short amount of time, and yet still hoping to have time for a dialogue. Okay. So if I'm going through something, and I'll preface to save your questions to the end for a reason, because I know a lot of the common questions I experience, I try to answer to the best of my ability in here. But that's pretty much it. Do we have any questions before we get into today? No? Okay, perfect. Bathroom breaks, water, take them when you need them. I'm gonna just keep the ball rolling for the sake of the recording and our sake of our time together, okay? So let's get into it. Very happy with this new workbook too, because if you know me, I've been working on this thing for 3 years. So this is the new one that I've updated for you guys. Let me just change this view so we have a single page. Can everybody see this okay? Is it big enough or is it too small? Is the type not large enough? It's good. Okay. Okay. And I'm going to read a lot of what we're talking about today to you, so you don't have to worry about like reading what's on the screen. So let's talk about what is an energy healer, and particularly the word healer. Very often we think that we're going to go to a practitioner and they're going to heal me of all of my ailments, right? So when we go to an energy healing practitioner, they are a healer in the sense that they heal the body in a positive way, right? We're bringing a more positive energy to the body. But to say that they cure somebody of their ailment is something different, right? We bring a healing energy to the space. We bring a healing energy to that individual, to your food, to whatever it is you're doing energy work on. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you are curing it, but you are assisting in the process of relieving them of any discomfort or ailments that would lead to them down the road experiencing a quote unquote cure. Does that make sense?
Well, is it okay to ask questions?
Go for it. Yeah.
So I think one time when I was with you or when I first met you, you said you have a lot of cancer patients come to you. So like, what is it that they get out of the energy healing? Obviously you're not giving them chemotherapy and stuff. So
Yeah.
like, how does this help like someone like that?
So let's go to kind of the concept of energy work, of what energy is, right? Probably should have started there, but that's okay. I get excited. So energy is the concept that nothing can be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. So cells are actually the perfect example of this. So let's say that your cells in your liver cells, like attracts like, right? Your liver cells are not going to function the same way that your hair cells do, right? But they both vibrate at a different frequency. So your liver cells are vibrating or communicating, sending messages to each other at a certain vibration, at a certain frequency. So it functions the way that this frequency in the liver intends it to function. Whereas your hair, right, like attracts like, functions in a different way. So for me and people with my complexion, probably have much finer, less oily hair because like attracts like. And so there's different frequencies based on where we are, right? Not ethnicity, but like your location of where you're born, right? And so we do see that portrayed a lot in ethnicity, that their hair, their complexion has different properties. It's because the frequency of their cells vibrate differently based off of where they originated or what like is like around them. Okay, so when we're talking about cancer cells, it's like attract like. And so it starts to amplify in the body. And so when we are using Reiki healing energy, we're shifting a frequency of a that's higher into the body, and it's vibrating at a different state. And so it starts to vibrate and talk to these other cells that might be malicious to the body's health, right? Or detrimental. And so we're having this very pure energy come in, and it starts to say, hey, we want to kind of change the story that you're telling the rest of the body. And so the cellular structure literally starts to change. And that's why people start to see cancer kind of start to remedy, or they have a new awareness, or they take action. It starts to leave the body because now their cells and everything in their intuition, their higher self is saying, I need to do this, or I need to do that. I've had clients sit up and say, I literally felt it leave my body. And then they go back and their whatever it is in their body is that much smaller. And it's because you've told the cells a new story. You've entered a new vibration into that space. And so when you don't have something that's like and like, you have a different frequency coming into this not so pleasant frequency, it starts to create a domino effect of let's have this new story to be told throughout all the cells, aka it's new vibration. That's jumping ahead a lot. That's going to be a concept we jump into like far down the road, but I hope that was like a very simplified way of saying it. Does that make sense? Or did I completely confuse everybody? Okay, awesome. So this actually is it's a perfect segue into somatics. Has anybody seen somatics where they have sand on a sound plate, and as the sound plate is vibrating, it creates all these different geometric shapes?
I haven't seen that.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna show you it really quickly. That's my dog. If you don't know my dog, that's my dog. She's everywhere. Can't avoid her. Okay. So this is sound being translated into a tangible material form. And as they change the frequency, as they change the tones, the water, the sand, whatever they use creates these different geometric patterns. So if you were to think of your whole body having its own blueprint, right? You ever hear of blueprint healing? There's people that literally do healing on the blueprint of your energy. That's the whole nother, like I said, tons of rabbit holes with energy work. But when we start to explore how sound or vibration or frequency translates into these sacred geometric structures, shapes, like atoms, like molecules, are made up of sacred geometric hexagons, right? Or pentagons. Everything breaks down to this sacred geometry, and every pattern has a different frequency. And so when we're looking at energy, and you'll see in here I reference a Stanford professor, his name's William Tiller, and he's a researcher, physicist, and he does most of his studies on subtle energy. You're going to see the really nerdy side of me throughout this whole program. But he basically talks about how the atoms literally communicate from a dense 3D dimension with higher dimensions through intention. And so that's kind of the definition of Reiki. Like we're translating from a higher ethereal state, this very pure, very loving frequency into the material or dense state. And so whatever geometric pattern the vibration of our heartbeat is creating in our body, right? Is telling it, hey, we're going to be healthy today, or we're going to be sick today. And if you get Reiki, it starts to change that rhythm, right? Because you're having a new frequency come in. And so the wavelengths start to work together and they find this new equilibrium. And that's what radiates throughout the body and alters the cellular structure, alters your blueprint, your frequency. So many people, when they explore energy healing, whether it be through, I'm definitely getting ahead of myself a lot, but here's some examples like sound healing, energy healing, meditation, mindfulness, connecting with the earth, acupuncture, breath work, all of these different modalities are energy healing. There's studies that show people who listen to a metal gong, you know, those huge metal gongs that people bang on, for 20 minutes, that have blood clots, high blood pressure, everything. They take blood samples, look at them underneath a microscope, and after 20 minutes, no more blood clots because the vibration has released all the clots from being stuck together and the cells started to radiate and expand, creating more oxygen and more peace in the body. And their blood pressure improves, their health improves, they slowly come off their medication. And it's not just because it's sound, but it's because the difference in frequency. And so depending on your intention of what you have in a healing session, your intention is radiating that frequency. So people, this is probably the most common limiting belief that students have is I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. I don't know if I'll be good at it. It has nothing to do with that. But think of those words as a frequency. They're a frequency that's kind of denying this natural birthright you have of connecting with the energy that is you and shifting the energy that is you into somebody who can do it, who is incredible at it, and who knows how to radiate it into anything that they move into. It's kind of like when you hang out with somebody in a room and you're like, oh my gosh, I love being around them, right? It's because they're radiating this energy versus someone who might not be so pleasant to be around. You're like, I don't want to be around this person, right? And so even in our day-to-day life, we experience here in the material 3D world a concept that is very different than what we experience in higher states of consciousness, and that is polarity. Which brings me into the main topic of our day. So let's go back. We're going to talk about the ego and the higher self, and then we'll go to the 5 bodies. So any questions so far? I know this is a lot, and it's like we kind of jumped into these really big concepts, but I promise we're going to dive deeper into them as we go, especially in shamanism. Like in shamanism literally is just like spiritual psychology. So just bear with me. We will answer all the rabbit hole questions. Okay. So when we're talking about energy, here in the 3D world, we have what's called the ego, right? And you've probably heard the phrase death of the ego. You will not, I'm not somebody who condones that. I'm not someone who practices that. I'm a firm believer that the ego is here in our human experience to help us learn and to help us evolve and for us to transcend and integrate it. Not to kill it, not to beat it off, nothing like that, right? We want to hold on to the lessons that the ego teaches us, but maybe not the distorted habits, beliefs, or conceptions, preconceptions that we might build upon from certain life experiences, right? So the ego is basically a tool we're gifted for the human experience. It's our, I love to call it the guard at the gate because that's exactly what it is. Let's say you experience a trauma in your life. And the ego is going to stand there and it's going to say, oh, well, you experienced this trauma and I'm going to make you disassociate and go and isolate yourself to protect yourself, right? And this is when you're a child, right? As you get older and you experience something that makes you feel the same as when you did when you were a kid, the ego is going to be like, hey, this worked back then. I'm going to keep using it. That's what I know. That's what I know works for you. So let's just keep that tool. And until you say, hey, ego, this doesn't serve who I am today, we need to learn a different way to maneuver. It's going to continue to use that way of behaving. And so we only experience this in the 3D, in this human existence, because in the human existence, we have opposites attract. It's in higher states of consciousness that like attracts like, right? Here, opposites attract to teach us lessons of the polarity. And the polarity is the ego and the higher self. We have this duality, and we come into this experience to explore that duality. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The ego is kind of what we all have, and the higher self is what we aspire to. Is that how I should interpret
Yeah,
it?
we're gonna jump into the higher self right now. So I know a lot of us think of, myself included at some point, when I started my spiritual rabbit hole of a journey, I definitely dived into this. Like, it makes me want to cry even talking about it, because it was just like, it's like so upsetting how we do this to ourselves sometimes. But it's like, well, I have to be the higher self and put so much pressure to be this version of ourselves, when the reality is who you are today is the higher self that your younger self probably wanted to be anyway. When you were a certain age, you probably could have never imagined being where you are right now, being accomplished, being exploring energy work, doing things to care for yourself, right? So in a sense, you are your higher self. You already are your higher self, but you're also this human experience of the ego. So if you have a spectrum, right? And this much of the spectrum is ego, and only this much is higher self. As you grow older and older, the goal is to be, okay, I'm integrating more of my ego, because as we get close to death is how we, in shamanism, this is the lens, right? As we approach death, we become enlightened. And the reason we die is because we've achieved the epitome of the enlightened soul that we can in this physical incarnation. And so then we pass to come back and continue to experience more enlightenment on a soul level, to whatever extent my next incarnation can hold. Does that make sense? Okay. So the ego is here to help teach us lessons. So I do mention in here, like, people who explore with like plant medicine and they have what's called a bad trip. It's because their guard's off duty, and it's opened the floodgates to all these emotions that maybe they were not ready to see, right? And a lot of experiences like this, like ayahuasca is a great example of this. People tend to see like the suicidal parts of themselves, or they see hell, or they see all these dark things, but really they're just manifestations of the deep emotions they may not be addressing. And so when our ego is killed very abruptly, we go through this deep purge, but it might not necessarily mean you're integrating it. It just means that now you have an awareness of it. So when we achieve these higher states, when we start to explore our higher self, and the higher self, don't think of it as like the perfect me or the ideal me. Think of it as the version of you that's willing to accept where you currently are with love and gratitude. Your higher self is going to be a version of you that knows that I'm meant to be in this human experience, but I'm also meant to explore it through the lens of having compassion for where I'm at. Because our higher consciousness, yes, it's love, it's life, light, but it also is very accepting of duality. Because your higher self, your soul, knows why you came here. So to think of your higher self as like, this is what I aspire to be, is a great way to help you to continue to progress, to continue to heal. But it also can hinder you in the fact that it might keep you in a state of not feeling enough. So that's why when we embody higher self, know that today you are your higher self. You're the highest self you can be as of today. And tomorrow you get to be even more. But today you get to celebrate all of who you are. That is a lens of a very healthy ego working with your higher self. So if you want to talk about the higher self as an energy, this is what in meditation, when we go to this very peaceful, blissful state and we feel like we're floating on air and nothing can upset us, that's the higher self. That's your higher state of consciousness. And the purpose of that, and the reason why we feel so blissful, is because there's no ego at higher states. Remember, the ego is only in this human experience. So when we leave our body and we're exploring this energy world, we're floating around and astral traveling, whatever you want to call it, we're in this very blissful state because we're not in the physical. We're not in ego. We're not in duality. So you'll notice that Abraham Hicks, or I'm trying to think of other people. I don't know if Joe Dispenza has like a consciousness he talks to. I know I do, and they're called Segwa. And if you worked with me for a long time, you probably heard me mention it. But it's a, when we go to higher states, you'll hear even channelers, mediums, you'll say, well, they told me this and they told me that. The they is the universe that we're all a part of. And they are loving. They don't have ego. The they is all accepting. And so when you're communicating with they, you feel loved, you feel peace, you don't feel any ego or malice. So when you come back down, did I really see them? Ego, right? Can I really trust what they said? Ego, right? The doubt, the fear. Should I do that? Oh gosh, I haven't been doing that, right? Then shaming yourself. That's where it's like, wait, no, keep that lens. Hey, I have great information now. I get to love and nurture these parts of me and continue to move forward. So often we come back down and we get all this loving information and we start shaming ourselves for not knowing it because sometimes it seems really obvious. So that's a difference in the higher self and the ego. And so a healthy dance between the two is kind of getting to this place of having a daily practice of letting them coexist. A lot of times that's journaling, right? You'll hear therapists be like, oh my gosh, go journal how you feel. And I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to do that. I have a horrible connotation with journaling because it makes me think of a therapy office. And it makes me think of this is dumb. And I have so many students that are like, I don't want to journal. It reminds me of when I did this and this in therapy. But instead of having that lens, remember that everything's energy. So that energy, that connotation has a vibration that's stopping you from expressing and experiencing all of who you are. So take that control back, right? And if it's not journaling, maybe you want to do mirror work, right? And mirror work is when you look yourself in the eyes. There's actually been psychology behind this, and I actually do this every morning, and it's kind of funny when I tell you, but you might have seen the video of it. There's a psychologist, I forget his name. This is very similar in work to Andrew Huberman, if you're familiar with Andrew Huberman. But you wake up, you brush your teeth with your opposite non-dominant hand. And as you're brushing your teeth, you look yourself in the eyes in the mirror the whole time because you're creating these new neural pathways, right? And so these neural pathways, what they do is they transfer energy throughout your body. Look yourself in the eye when you're done brushing your teeth and tell yourself you love yourself 25 times. And just say it, and you will feel your body, your energy start to shift because you've activated these neural pathways. And so in that moment, you're integrating ego with higher self. You're integrating this part of you that might not want to look at yourself with messy hair and no makeup in the morning in the mirror and be like, oh my gosh, I love you when you look like a dang wreck. But you don't look like a wreck because I love you in all forms. And so it's this beautiful kind of, you have these thoughts going on in the background as you do practices like this. Mirror work's a very powerful practice. It's the practice of seeing yourself as you are today and speaking to yourself with kindness. It could also be used when you're holding a lot of not so pleasant emotions, right? Based in the ego, of like resentment or anger, hurt, pain, abandonment, anything, or a conversation. Like I'm sure everybody in this chat has spoken a imaginary conversation or fight with somebody in their head at some point in their life 100 times. And so do that into the mirror. That will help you see yourself. And usually at some point we get to this place of why am I taking my peace? And that's your higher self stepping in saying, hey, let's not perpetuate these old patterns. Let's not create such anger, such animosity within us. And so when it comes, I'm partial to journaling. Journaling, I find, allows the physical writing of it. You're taking that energy from a mental place and not just saying it out loud into a mirror, but you're also putting it into a tangible form where you could see it and it will be there to go back to. Whereas mirror work, unless you're recording yourself on a video, it's kind of like in that time and then it's done. Journaling's really significant because it, one, literally helps your brain process and record what it is you're writing. And when I say process, I mean like process it mentally and emotionally, and it will help you feel it in your body. So there's science behind that, which is why therapists do recommend journaling so much. Other thing about journaling that I find a lot of people struggle with is, what do I write? How do I start? Where do I go? I tell my students all the time, literally start your page with, I don't know what to say. I think this is dumb. I don't want to do this. Let yourself be very honest and transparent. It's your space. And then eventually you're going to be like, well, why do I feel that way? Eventually you get into such a place of being authentic with yourself. You start to meet yourself. That's why I am partial to journaling. I find it's a great practice Because a lot of times our resistance to something is the very thing that's going to help us evolve. And so if you're resistant to it, explore it, right? Within reason, things that are healthy, please. We're not saying like if you're against doing something that you know you shouldn't be doing, go and do it. No, not what we're condoning here. So go check out a journal. And when you're journaling, I know for me, I always start off with, I call it my brain dump, right? So I have a brain dump book, and then I actually have it right here. And then I have a journal that is specifically talking to my higher self, talking to spirit, right? So I create different journals, one for brain dumps and one for talking to spirit, because they hold different energy. Each emotion, when you're speaking to your ego in one, it's going to have a certain frequency in that journal. When you have a different journal for when you're manifesting or you're speaking into existence, the beautiful things you're creating, co-creating with spirit, put it in a different journal of a higher frequency.
Okay.
I find that helps us to look forward to journaling, but at the same time, don't demonize the one that's your brain dump book. Like, this is the book that has all my yucky stuff. I don't want to look at it right now. Like, accept that, hey, no, these are me. These are my energies. These are my frequencies. And today, this is a frequency I need to kind of purge some more of this out. And this is one that I want to create more out in the universe. I do my brain dump journals. I will say, I'll show you, tend to be spiral bound. So I can rip them out and burn them to transmute them.
Burn them.
Yeah. Because after, so like, this is great. If there's something that I know I'm working through mentally or emotionally, once you write it down and you're like, okay, that was a big release, burning it with intention transmutes the energy. So you're saying, spirit, universe, I'm now, because energy can't be created or destroyed, but it can be transformed. I'm now allowing this, what I've written, to be transformed. And in the ash, in the air, in the ether that it becomes, it is now transformed into loving and healing and accepting energy. Have the intention of transmuting what form it's taken. And so already in our day-to-day life, we're practicing energy work. Doesn't have to be Reiki. When you're journaling, you're practicing energy work. You're taking it, energy that's within you, and you're translating it into a material form. When you're having a fight with somebody, you're taking your emotional energy and you're exuding it into that space or someone around you, right? And it's very, very natural, which is why everybody can do it. Everybody can do it. Questions so far? Nothing? No. Okay, cool. So I'm not gonna read everything to you and melt your brains. So you'll have this later today after class. I'll post this section and you guys can go through it. But let's go into a little bit back to where we started, right? So energy work is very much, and I've touched on this already quite a bit, it's very much the intention. Your intention is a vibration, right? Your heartbeat has a vibration. They literally measure it with machines, right? Your blood flow has a vibration, has a pace, has a frequency. So of course your intention does too. Your words do. In ancient Egypt, there's a fruit fly flying around my face all of a sudden. Hieroglyphics, the words had so much energy and frequency, and the people believed that they were so potent that they would smudge out certain letters with their fist when they wrote them on the wall or when they wrote them on parchment, because they didn't want that energy to continue to ripple into the energy of the letters around it. Certain letters, certain images, certain hieroglyphics had a lower frequency, and everybody knew if it was smudged, that frequency was negated, basically neutralized. Sandra Ingerman said something. She's very famous and popular in the shamanic world. She said something that has stuck with me for years. This was probably like 7, 8 years ago. I don't know. When you're driving, you get road rage and you want to cuss somebody off. You want to flip them off. She sends out a fishing pole to grab the energy she just sent to that person. She pulls it back in while she's driving because she doesn't want to send that malice, that hurt, that pain to somebody, their own emotional energy. Your intention is very, very strong. Have you ever like had a thought or feeling like, ooh, something bad's going to happen, and then it stays in your mind and you think about it so much and eventually it happens. The same thing can happen with good things though. But there's quite literally a part of the brain, it's actually at the base of your brain stem, that whatever we focus on, it amplifies that and starts to show more of that. So if you've ever thought about getting a new car and then you start to see that car all over the road, that part of your brain is highlighting that thing. It's like when you start to see angel numbers, for instance, like 333, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing it everywhere. That part of your brain's looking for it. It's making sure you notice it because it knows you're telling it, I want to focus on this. So it brings it into your reality. So the act of manifesting has science. If you want to see more money coming into your life, start to see it around you, and your brain's going to look for it, and your energy is going to start to pull it in, because like attracts like in an energetic higher state, right? But if you have fear or scarcity mindset, it's going to show you the polarity. It's going to show you the very thing that you're fearful of as much as you want to call this very new thing in. And so the more we meet our ego, our higher self, the more we get clear on what a positive and beneficial intention is. Okay? Because with energy work, I think a lot of times, like people, I've had people come in, I wrote this in here too. If people come in and they're like, I've been dealing with this all my life, it's not going to go anywhere. That's their limiting belief. They're coming to you to shift their energy though. Don't listen to their limiting beliefs. Hear them with compassion. Be like, okay, yeah, no, I totally could understand why you feel that way. But don't adopt it for yourself. You're limitless. I'm limitless. We're all limitless. When you do energy work, you're limitless. You're not bound by anything, even your physical body. The only thing that limits you is the ego. The only thing that limits you is your thought and your beliefs. So when we're working with energy and someone comes to me, we'll go back to cancer. It's the perfect example. Cancer typically is a manifestation of immense anger and resentment that is stuck in the body. Every cancer patient I've worked with typically has grief, resentment, anger, or betrayal. One of those are kind of like the top four that kind of has really hit them hard in life. And it could be a combination of a few of them, but it's really rippled and manifested in their body. And typically where the cancer originates tells you where they felt that in their life, right? So in their spine support system, right? In their chest, in their emotional connections, in their pelvic region, it could be relationships and intimate partners, right? Narcissism, codependency is a very common one with that too. And so meaning like the codependent experiencing the cancer after a very traumatic experience with a narcissist, to clarify. That's very common, I find. And so, but that piggybacks when you go back to like genetics. Is it genetics? Or is it the passing down of beliefs of, well, I married a narcissist, my dad was a narcissist, or my mom was a narcissist, and they married and they married. It's a transfer of energy and patterns and belief systems. And when we start to shift that, the cellular structure that's been passed down, right? That's where you get the term lineage breakers, people that decide to heal, decide to say, even if I have experience in this life, I can still be a lineage breaker. I can still change that cellular structure, that belief system, that connection or relationship pattern in my life. And in turn, everybody that comes after me and is around me starts to shift and will change, and it will diminish because you're choosing to change that cellular structure and belief system, your intention, right? I'll share a personal experience, and this really blew my mind. Some of you know, I think only one of you doesn't know. I was in a very abusive relationship a few years ago, life-threatening one. And I'll never forget, my grandma came to me a year later. She was visiting, and abuse ran in my family. It was genetic. And she said to me, she goes, well, once you attract it once, you'll always attract it. And I looked at her, I said, if you want to believe that, you can. I said, but that's not my belief system. And she came back to me a year later. She goes, when you said that, she goes, it changed a lot for me. And after I said that, though, she started changing all of her relationships, and she moved away from all the unhealthy people in her life and is now very healthy, very happy relationships. And so it doesn't just have to be people after you, it can be people before you. But a lot of times it's a belief system that trickles it, that continues it and perpetuates it. So be that person that kind of creates a new domino effect. Okay. So again, intention. Any questions on that? Okay. Back to the Cancer though, with the intention, a lot of people will come in and they're like, well, it can't be healed. It can't remedy. And if that's their limiting belief, let it be their limiting belief. But when you're doing your work, your intention is you're limitless. You are healthy. You are healed. You're whole, right? Your intention isn't, well, I'm going to go in and you told me it's here, and so I want to remove it, right? That's rooted in the ego. That's you wanting to have control, wanting to take claim to the healing. And we're not a healer, right? You're an energy worker, but you do not do the healing. With Reiki, you're a conduit of healing energy. And even in day-to-day life, we're not healing, we're just shifting energy. And the shift of energy is what helps the body to heal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions before we go into the 5 bodies?
Well, about the intention, that seems so major that when you before you start working on anyone or you come into the space that you have this intention of being your higher self and just focusing just real positive energy and being this conduit. So for an intention, do you think of something particular when you're praying, before you do Reiki? What is your kind of general intention going into that sacred space?
We actually, in our next class, will cover
That we will go into that. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to
Okay.
go over all sacred space, what intentions, I promise.
Okay.
Yeah, but great question. It's a great question. I
Okay.
totally get why you want to segue there too, because.
Yeah. No, that's
Okay.
good. Oh,
Any other questions? Nope. Cool. Okay. Hopefully I'm not boring everybody with all this. Okay. 5 bodies. You might have heard these referred to as the koshas, or sometimes even states of consciousness, right? I call them the 5 bodies because I like to teach energy in a very tangible way and bring some science into it. So when you have someone come up to you and they say it's woo-woo, you could say, actually, no, it's very natural. And you can tell them all the ways in which it's not something that is woo-woo or out of this world, or you're some witch, right? Okay, cool. So our 5 bodies: the mental, emotional, physical, energetic, and spiritual. And I'll have the other 3 on the next slide, but I'm going to go through these. And this is a great time to this is rabbit hole nation. You want to ask questions as we go through this, go for it. But let's get into it. So the 5 bodies are the ones I just listed, but the significance that they play, and not just being an energy worker or healer, but just being your authentic self, is profound. When you know your 5 bodies, you are aligning your authentic self, right? Because your 5 bodies make up your higher self as well as your experience with the ego. Okay. So when we talk about the mental body is the home of thought, perception, self, and other. It thrives off of personal growth. So by challenging and exploring our own thoughts and beliefs, we stay open, explore, and maybe even adopt new perspectives that allow us to experience life through a new lens. And this can alter any core beliefs, leading to a new frequency or the next level of personal growth. So when we're experiencing the mental body, it could show up as this deep knowing. So for instance, if I were to, there's so many people that come to mind. If I were to start talking about energy work to somebody, they might be like, oh, you're going to tell me all this woo-woo stuff. That response in and of itself says that their mental body has a very definite lens. They have blinders on. They're not willing to open them and see, wait, there's another way to look at this, right? So for instance, if I were to show you this, you'd be like, oh, there's butterflies on it. But for me, I'd be like, no, it's just a black screen. Your lens is of one view. My lens is of another. But the reality is that both coexist. The mental body, in order to grow and evolve, needs to be able to zoom out and see the truth, not just your truth or somebody else's truth. Okay? This plays a huge role in the ego. And we'll get to that with the emotional body. But from a mental lens with the ego, this is the ability to acknowledge your experience and somebody's experience, your perspective and their potential perspective, right? So this is what helps us tap into empathy when we're able to zoom out, okay? Questions on mental body? Cool. So when we say that the mental body shows up as a deep knowing, this is like all of you've experienced this me when we're sitting in session and I'm like, what's going on in this part of your body? Why do you feel this? Or what happened at work? Or why this with your daughter or with your son-in-law or with your family, right? That's that deep knowing. That's the gift or one of your clairs when you're very aligned with your mental body. Okay. And let me be very clear, like your gifts are not a reflection of your worth or your capability as a practitioner. They're all muscles. The more you work with this kind of stuff, the stronger they're going to get. I have students that are like, I can't see anything. Like it's and it's literally a disease where they feel like the mind like can't visualize. And as they continue with this work, those students always end up seeing. It ends up being one of their strongest ones. They just had a very strong limiting belief that was hindering them from trusting what they were seeing and experiencing. And the third eye is I trust. Your mental body is the deep trust in what you witness and what you experience, okay? And what you know to be your truth and the truth. Emotional body. One of my favorites, one of the most potent of the bodies though too, meaning that a lot of people, their emotional body is what the other bodies respond to, okay? So for some it's, ooh, I have a thought of a cute puppy and that's what makes me smile. And then my nervous system responds and then my energy shifts and then my physical body gets this like intoxicated freaking joy flowing through it, right? Whereas other people, it could be the emotion of, I feel joy. Oh, this reminds me. Then the mental brain goes to when they felt this way previously. And then they'll have a trickle effect in the rest of their bodies. But these two bodies are typically the primary ones that we function out of and respond from. So the emotional body is home to self-expression and the ego. Emotions hold immense energy and it's sensed by the world around us, creating reality and deeply influencing the lens we have of the mental body, and just anything that we experience. So perfect example of this is if you walk into a room that someone just had an argument in, you could probably be like, whoa, somebody just fought in here. It's the remnants of that emotional vibration in that room, right? Or if you walk into a space and you know, like somebody was just talking about something spicy. I want to know the tea. Somebody tell me the tea. And you could feel that energy of like, ooh, there was like a good conversation. I'm missing out, like the FOMO, like all the way. Emotional body. You're feeling that energy. You're feeling what was radiating from that conversation, right? And it's like, ooh, I want that. I want that. Most of the time when people are nosy, they're actually craving an understanding of why they're feeling a certain energy. It's not actually that they want to know the information. Oh, now I know that I don't really care. But now that feeling's gone, I don't have to wonder why I was feeling all those things, right? Most of the time when we tell somebody the tea, they're like, oh, I don't really care about that. And they move on. They just wanted the why behind the energy that they were sensing. Okay. So we build a relationship with our emotional body. When we build this relationship, we're no longer controlled by emotions, but more so observant of them and able to question if they're rooted in the here and now or rooted in the old self or inner child, AKA if it's rooted in the ego. The ego is typically when we are reactive emotionally, the ego is replaying a previous event to protect you, reminding you, hey, last time we felt this way, this is what we did. You reacted like this, and it was to help you. It was to keep you safe. It was to keep you distant from people, to push people away, or to shut you down, or to help you be alone, to regulate, right? Whatever the reason. And so when we start to feel that emotional reactivity coming up, the higher self can step in and your relationship with your emotional body can grow. And you could say, wait a minute, I see your reactivity, but I don't need you in this moment. Little child in me, we don't need to react that way. Look, we're going to do it differently. And then the ego's like, wait, we're doing this differently. Let me take notes. Is this going to work? It might be uncomfortable the first few times, but it's going to learn. And so that's why when we start new patterns, it's really challenging because a lot of it is because your guard at the gate is like, but we've done this for decades, right? And it's like, let's change why everything's been working so well. And that's what it thinks, but it's not always the truth. So the emotional body is where the ego basically makes bed. It's where it wants to stay, likes to stay, because it's where typically we protect ourselves the most, is through our emotional self. Okay. So the emotional body, we'll talk about this more. I think it's not our second class, maybe our third class when we get into Reiki level 1 and we talk about the principles of Reiki. There's one that's strictly around anger and it parallels to the emotional body very much so. So we'll talk about that then. So the emotional body, this could show up as emotions moving through you. So if you find yourself to be a very like cold or stoic person, even when you're alone, there's a difference between what you show to other people and what you actually are. What we present to the world is very different than the truth of our energy. So you are the only individual that knows your authentic self. And until you know it and choose to exhibit it to the people around you, no one can really say they know your authenticity. Does that make sense? So as we start to get to know our 5 bodies, we start to get to know what is like, who is Jordan? Am I emotional? Am I not emotional? Do I like connection? Do I not like connection? Why do people think this or that? Or who cares what they think? Is it true for me? Getting to know what is true for you is what helps you align with these emotional bodies and get to know yourself. So when you have emotion moving through you, you'll see this when you start to practice on other people. If you practice on me, when you practice on each other, you'll notice this, whether this is something you experience or not. If you're extremely empathetic already, like if you can just like look at a picture on social media or watch TV and bawl your eyes out, you're probably going to feel emotions when you do your healings. Or if you're just empathetic in your interactions, this might be a very strong one for you. If you're not very empathetic, the deep knowing will probably be very strong for you. People typically lean one of 2 ways, right? So typically the more recluse we are, the more mental, and the more recluse in the sense of our energy, of how much we let people see, not recluse as an individual, just to clarify. Because I'm a very recluse individual, but I'm also very open and transparent. So that's what I mean. There's a difference. The emotional body, when this is someone who's typically, they don't have to be very open with their own emotions, but they're not afraid to express them, right? They're not someone that if you pour your heart out to them, they're going to be like, they're going to be like, oh my gosh. And like, you'll see the expression, the emotion moving through them. They're not someone who's going to be very stoic or reserved typically. On the flip side of that, people who embody a more stoic or emotionally recluse energy, and it's not actually their authentic way of expressing their emotions, this emotional body might hit them like a freight train when they start doing energy work. Because it might be like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling all these emotions and I'm in my higher self. Like this is overwhelming. And so energy work can also help activate parts of our authenticity that we might feel really disconnected from. So just keep that in mind as you go through the energy work. You're going to be channeling in this very beautiful high frequency into your body. And it's going to help you heal every time you practice. And in turn, it's going to clear away any imbalances that you're experiencing too. So, questions? Nobody? No question? Okay. Keep it moving. We are already an hour in. I feel like it's flying by. Okay. Physical body, our flesh and bone, the most vulnerable layer, yet also the layer that exposes the imbalances of other layers in physical form. Okay. So what was I just saying? Right? Like, what's that mean? This means that if your emotions of anger are not being addressed, they manifest as an ailment. If your emotions of not feeling worthy are not addressed, they manifest as an imbalance or an ailment in the physical body. The physical body is the canvas in which the other bodies paint on to tell you what's going on. And if you cannot read your canvas, if you cannot read this bulletin board that is your physical self, your messages start to get bigger. They start to highlight them. They start to make them bold font. They start to enlarge them throughout your whole body. So it might start as like a little ache in your chest. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I have heart issues, or I have circulation issues, right? It's the bulletin board of the rest of your bodies. So just keep that in mind. The physical body, so I put some examples. So the headaches are typically and always rooted in a blocked crown and a blocked third eye. So it's so common. People come and they can't sleep, or they have bad dreams, or they don't remember their dreams, or they suffer with immense anxiety, or they feel like they don't know where to go or what's going on. And it's typically always a blocked crown and a blocked third eye, because the crown is this deep sense of knowing, and your third eye is trusting yourself. The crown is trusting a higher power, something greater than yourself. And so when these chakras are blocked, we start to not have those energy centers to process through. Our ego basically is going to kind of take up any of that energy. And that's why they're blocked. They're blocked with ego. They're blocked with fear. They're blocked with doubt. They're blocked with insecurity or not feeling connected, right? So that's what I mean by like our ego is going to tell us how to connect with our higher self, right? Because the crown wouldn't be blocked if you felt safe and trusting the unknown, right? Your third eye wouldn't be blocked if you didn't have self-doubt, or you could believe what you were seeing, right? This is like people who experience a lot of gaslighting, block third eye, typically always, because they have self-doubt. They've had somebody in their life that perpetuated this theme of like, oh my gosh, I can't trust what I'm seeing, or like, do I have to constantly defend what is my reality, right? And so energetically, that creates blocked chakras, which in turn creates headaches, migraines. I've even seen black matter in the brain, like seen third eye, not, well, I have seen some medical scans too, which are pretty cool. But anyhow, they show up in a physical form. Whereas people who've experienced, and sometimes they don't even have to be this drastic. If you know me, my caseload is very trauma-based, very autoimmune based, and very unexplained disease based. So people with a lot of unexplained ailments. And so I have a lot of clients that experience abuse, sexual assault, of some sort. And so that's typically sacral, and they experience a lot of lower back pain or leg pain, feeling as if their trauma is what's stopping them from moving forward, legs, right? Or infertility, feeling as if I'm dirty, or I'm not enough, or I don't have all of who I am. It's all of these old traumas, right? The Body Keeps the Score, if you've ever heard of it, great book. But the same concept. Your physical body does keep the score. I just don't like that phrase, which is why I like to call it your bulletin board. It tells you all of your messages. It tells you everything you need to know that is wrong. So for instance, like I know for me, when my throat is really blocked, I need to talk. I sit all day in silence, like doing healings and not talking. And a big part of my purpose is to talk, is to educate. And so my throat tends to hurt when I'm not talking a lot, or when I'm not educating people, when I'm not speaking. And I know that when I get that knot, it's not thyroid issues. It's not that I feel suppressed. It's that I have so much energy built up that it needs to get out. Understanding what the messages are for you means that you're aligning with your authenticity. Because for some people, that tightness in the throat is thyroid issues. And thyroid is typically when we're not expressing our truth around our purpose. So it manifests in the thyroid because the thyroid's the higher heart. And so my tightness might mean something different than your tightness, which is why getting to know your body is very important. Okay. So I know a lot of times we're like, oh my gosh, I saw this animal. Let's Google what it means. Sit with yourself before you Google it. Sit with what you feel in your body. Ask your body, what do you feel? Why do you feel this way? And typically you'll get, well, I'm tired of people. That doesn't make sense. I thought you were going to say because we worked out too hard. Why do you have back pain? Well, I'm just tired of people. What do you mean? I'm tired of everybody dumping on me, right? And you'll hear your own intuition, your inner self talk to you. Let yourself be open to a new lens of getting to know your body, right? Because the messages your body gives you about your physical ailments might come from your emotional self, or might come from a belief. I might be like, well, I feel like I'm not enough, right? Or I feel like I'm not caring enough. I feel like I need to do more, right? Or I feel depleted, right? It could, like, leg pain typically, or especially the right leg. If people have issues with their right leg, it's because either they're not moving forward with something they really want to, or they never slow down. And so you have the duality, you have the polarity, and it will be different for everybody. So that's why I say don't Google it. Sit with yourself and see what's true for you. And then if you're really stumped, Google it. And then whatever you Google, be like, is that true? Don't necessarily adopt it off the bat. You know yourself. Everything you need to know is within you. And the more you start to move through your life in that way, the more you will start to feel aligned, to feel powerful, and to feel like, I don't need any medicine. My body's healing itself every day because I'm magical and fabulous. No one can tell me otherwise, right? Okay. Gonna get off my soapbox for a few minutes now. Anyway. So this shows up as physical sensations or ailments. I know for myself, this is probably the strongest one that I experience next to the deep knowing. This is where you feel other people's physical pain. I think all of you I've disclosed this with. I think we've all had experiences, and if not, that's okay too, where I say, well, I feel this in my body. Where is this happening? Why is this happening? Why do you have your cycle? What's going on here? Do you have issues in your hip, or et cetera, et cetera? When you have a very good connection with your physical body starts to talk to you the same way your mental and emotional body will. Okay. And so each body is a different state of consciousness, though. Your physical body is in the 3D. Your emotional body, a little farther out. Mental body, a little farther out. Which brings me to your energetic body. I think a lot of times people perceive the energetic body as their spiritual self. Your energetic body is your nervous system, right? Your fight or flight response, your rest or digest, your I'm in or I'm effing out, right? So this energetic body is one of the biggest components next to your emotional and mental. Because think about it. If I were to say to you, well, like when we hear a fire alarm in the house, the first thing it does is the brain, oh, fire alarm, emotions, oh crap, right? Nervous system, fight, flight, or figure out what is going on, right? Your nervous system is an energetic response. And so your energy based off of that might feel a little anxious. The energy you radiate is not necessarily just an emotion. It's also your nervous system. And that's why you have co-regulation. When you become an energy practitioner doing Reiki, shamanic healing, quantum healing, divine healing, angel healing, whale healing, I don't care the label, you are being trained to co-regulate other people. You're being trained to hold space, which is why it's important to know your 5 bodies. Because if you're at home, you're super emotional, or you're having a day from who knows what, it's going to translate in your energy. And over time, you'll learn how to change that energy. I had a student yesterday. It was actually really funny. I had a bit too much coffee and I was like really like just talking very quickly, and we were just having a ball, and she was practicing. And I brought up a certain client of mine. I have a client with unexplainable, it's going on 2 years now, no diagnosis, absolutely emaciated. And after we started working together, she's up 20, 25 pounds after a few sessions. And hasn't been able to keep any food down, was losing hair, and she's younger than myself, and I'm 30. And we were talking about how certain people get overstimulated their nervous system, right? Very easily from being burnt out or holding too much energy. And so as I was talking about this girl, she pointed out to me, she goes, your whole demeanor changed. Like I went from talking like I was on coffee to talking like this. And I was saying, yeah, well, she comes in, I can't have incense. I can't have my dog in the house. I can't have music playing because our nervous system's overstimulated. So the more you start to practice this work, it will be like a light switch. You will think of the client and you will know, oh, wait, I can't be happy, fun, playful me. I have to be really calm. I have to be calm to regulate them. Because the space they're coming into is a space you're creating. Okay. And so the nervous system plays such a huge, like, it makes me want to cry. It really does. Like, I've had so many people with just horrible life experiences that come and their nervous system is just fried. Some to the point that their nerves or they're losing feeling in certain areas of their body. And especially my veterans, like I'll never forget this. I had a vet one time and he was so into all this stuff, but he had never experienced it. He's one of like 4 people in the world that they call in to deactivate the bombs, right? And so he's very sensitive to energy, obviously, because he has to know what he's holding and like what movements to do. He's extremely sensitive. He had no feeling though from his arm down to his hand. And in our first session, his hand started twitching and he's like, I feel my hand, and it freaked him out. But it's simply the intention of your body's safe. You're not holding something that will take you away, right? Because it wasn't that he had damage from war or nerve damage from this. Yeah, the physical body did, but it was rooted in, I feel like I'm holding something and I'm scared of not knowing if I'm going to have my arm or not after, right? I can't feel really what's going on. So he couldn't feel from his arm down, and the hand which was his dominant hand. And so over time, he started to move his fingers again and he got his nerves back, and they all came back online because this energy, the frequency had shifted and his nervous system felt safe again. A part of his nervous system was replaying the job that he wasn't in anymore. He had left just 2 years prior, was replaying that fear. And so the nervous system remembered. So the energetic body, this could show up as your other 3 bodies reacting to whatever they're sensing. So for instance, I struggle with this one. I find this one personally to be overwhelming, even though it's very strong. The more I've practiced, it's become very strong and I've learned to cope with it. But when it first kind of clicked on, it was overwhelming because let's say if someone comes in and they're kind of like the Chihuahua analogy, like they have such anxiety that they're a shaker, right? You might, if you already have a strong mental and emotional body, your energetic body might be like, oh, we feel their anxiety. Oh, we feel the nausea in their stomach. Oh, we feel the heart racing. You have to get to that place of like, okay, I see it. It's not mine. It's not mine. I can understand. I have compassion, but it's not mine. Because it will, if you let it, when I didn't know, I wish I had a teacher who taught me it, but if you let it, you're kind of like, is this me? Is it not me? Like, why do I feel this? And it will make you a little kooky because you're like, why all of a sudden am I anxious? Am I nervous? Can I do my work? Am I not good at this? Should I not be doing this? Before all those thoughts start flooding in, ask yourself, wait, is this even my energy? Because most of the time when those thoughts come in, even when we're talking to somebody, right? We're talking to people and it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting insecure around them. Why do I feel insecure? I'm typically so confident. They're insecure. They don't like my confidence. My confidence threatens them, and that's okay. That's okay. I can't heal that, but I'm not going to feel that anxiety. It's not mine. We experience this even in day-to-day interactions, and it's typically with people that we butt heads with, because the butting of heads is us ping-ponging our energy back and forth instead of really recognizing, wait a minute, there's something about this that's making me feel some kind of way. I need to take a step back. I need to explore this, and then I'll come back. So I don't want to push it onto you. I don't want to ping pong it with you. So when I say energy work, it's not just Reiki. It's not just shamanic healing. This is a day-to-day practice. It's something you could do. It helps a different lens come to light, right? I think sometimes we're so beaten down with like sometimes a psychology lens, which I love, but having a different way of looking at it helps us to be like, whoa, I get to use my beautiful natural superpowers of working with the energy that is me every day and watching how just having the intention of being my new higher self today changes my relationships, my nervous system, my physical appearance, right? The way I feel, the way I think, which is why a lot of times when people start to explore energy work, their health improves, their physical body changes. I know when I got into this, I had people tell me that my face literally changed. Like my face and my eyes started to just seem different. And if you really start to go down like a Reiki rabbit hole, you'll see a lot of stuff about like people's eyes in particular, but it makes sense because there's so many references to the eyes being the soul. So the more you do this, your complexion might brighten or your eyes might get wider, or the way you dress, the way you present yourself might change because you're aligning with your authenticity. the more you start to get to know each body, the more you get to know your nervous system, especially. Like, what makes your nervous system tick? Like, if a certain parent calls you, are you like, oh no, right? Does that make your nervous system flare, right? Or if you have a certain person in your life and the idea of them coming back into your life is frightening. Or if you have some people that really make you feel calm, explore what your nervous system enjoys and doesn't enjoy, not just with people, but what do you do to regulate it at home? Do you play music in your house and dance around like you're 12 years old and just have fun and not care, right? Or do you know that your nervous system gets overstimulated and you need to just sit with your breath and you just need quiet? And if you know it, do you practice it? And if you don't practice it, why do you not do that? Right? And it will lead you down this rabbit hole of really exploring your why. A lot of times we're like, oh, it's because I'm lazy. Bless you. And it's not that. A lot of times we say these quick things because we just want to give ourselves a reason. But the reality is, well, if I do it, I'm scared of who I'll become. If I explore this part of me, what if I realize there's so much I haven't even scratched the surface in my healing? So what? So what if there is? Because what's happening is you're meeting yourself and it will help you evolve. Nervous system is like your breath is the key to your nervous system, and we'll talk about that here shortly. That's part of the last half of today, and we'll do a few things together too, which you guys can practice on your own, all the things. But for your energetic body, I would highly recommend exploring how you feel in your physical home, in your room, in your space. Is it clean? Is it messy? Because typically when we have a messy space, it makes our mind and our body feel cluttered too. Because our space is a reflection of our frequency that we're radiating, because you're creating the space around you. So really explore that. You ever clean your whole house and you feel like, oh my gosh, so much weight has been lifted? It's because you just got rid of all this crappy energy that was floating around, all this excess stuff. Like, I know when we get off this call, it's a cleaning day for me. I have 3 baskets of laundry that have been calling my name all week. So it's things like that, like knowing, like, I know if I let this sit another day, I'll never do it. Right? And it's more than just like I'm tired or I don't want to. It's probably also because like it energetically feels heavy, but you get to transform it, whether it's with thought, intention, or folding those clothes. Okay. Okay. Questions on any of these bodies so far? Comments, anything? Cool. Let's keep it rolling. Spiritual body. This is the fun one. It's known as the body of consciousness. It is the most subtle of all bodies. The spiritual body is where we are aligned with our soul's bliss and feel at home and one with universal consciousness. This body is home to our wisdom, values, ethics, and beliefs. And as we get to know our higher self and how this frequency, energy, and version of us feels, we begin to ground those qualities into the here and now, allowing us to move through our day-to-day life with this version of ourselves. I need to change the way I typed here there. This can show up as seeing or sensing you or someone else's authentic soul energy or body and or higher self. The spiritual body, I find, is the one that most people always want to jump to. I want to connect with this body. I want to feel it. I want to experience it. I want to dive into it. And that's great. And it's fabulous. And I totally understand, totally am, will continue to be that individual myself. But know that all of the bodies are what help build that connection to your spiritual body, right? Your spiritual body chose to come into the human experience. Your spiritual body wanted you to have this physical life. And so when we explore the spiritual body, when we're exploring the body of consciousness, a big component to this is learning how to silence the ego, right? A lot of times we sit in meditation and we're like, what do I want to cook for dinner? Oh, I got to do this. Oh, it's been 5 minutes. How much longer do I have to do this? Like, and we sit there and we get frustrated. And breath, not only for your nervous system, but for your spiritual body, is so vitally important. Like when you sit with your breath in meditation, and we'll do this here shortly, but I know when I meditate and my mind's very busy, I sit and I keep a hand on my chest and a hand on my belly, and I just focus on my breath. No thoughts come in. Turn it away. And eventually you'll feel yourself like, because I feel so often we want to like sit up straight, keep your spine erect, have your crown reach toward the ceiling and your butt toward the ground. And it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like a statue. When the reality is your spiritual body, your consciousness comes when you're relaxed, when you embody peace, when you're not flexing your belly and you're like, okay, I can let my belly just be my belly. I don't need to worry about like having this tight diaphragm and like making sure like my hands on my belly. Do I like my stomach? Do I not like my stomach? Like I hear this with people. They're like, when I put my hand on my stomach or my chest, I'm like, oh my gosh, my boobs are huge or my stomach's huge or I don't like this or I don't like that, instead of just being present. And so there's all these thoughts that come in. So if you don't want to physically touch yourself, you could even put your hands right over your chest. You could put your hands like this. So it's basically like you have your left, I like the left hand on top, it's your feminine. And you just overlap your hands, pointer on top of pointer, middle on top of middle, ring on top of ring, pinky on top of pinky. And you allow your thumbs to touch and you close your fingers. This is unity consciousness mudra. So you just let yourself chill and just chill. And if you end up slouching a little, you slouch a little, but let yourself breathe. Let yourself breathe and let your diaphragm relax. How often have you actually breathed and let your diaphragm relax? Usually we're so focused on being tense, we don't realize that our abs are flexed, that our rib cage and our diaphragm is not fully released. It's not fully expanding and coming back in. When you experience breath, when you just sit and the first few breaths, you're going to feel your diaphragm like resisting, like, I don't want to relax. It's going to feel like you hit a wall and you'll feel it go up into your chest. And do this for a few minutes and you'll feel your whole body relax. Just deep breathing in through the nose and then out through your mouth. That's going to help you shift from your physical body to your energetic nervous system to then your spiritual. Because what you're doing is you're bringing your breath, life force, prana, into the physical vessel. By bringing it into the physical vessel, you're stimulating your vagus nerve, right? Your nervous system. Your vagus nerve runs down your spine. So when your diaphragm expands with this life force energy, it's pushing against your spine, your vagus nerve. It's stimulating it to calm down. And that's why when people have anxiety attacks, they're like, take a deep breath. And somebody who's freaking out is like, how do I do that? Right? So they give them a paper bag, something physical to touch, to focus on, to then see their breath. Because they're not going to sit there and be like, yeah, let me expand my stomach. No, let me expand this damn bag, right? It's just for them to have something to focus on. And so when we're calm, we get to focus on your physical vessel. So not only are you regulating your nervous system, shifting your consciousness to a higher state, but by regulating your nervous system, you're getting to know your mental and emotional self, which is why it's very normal that when we start breath work, we start to cry. You'll start to cry. You'll feel happy cries. Like, oh my gosh, I don't even know why I'm crying, but I'm crying. And the crying's happening because you're energetically holding space for yourself like you would as a practitioner for other people. And so you start to release. And you'll have the happy crying, even if it's like, oh my gosh, I felt all these yucky things, but I feel happy about realizing I felt all these yucky things. It's because you're shifting into your spiritual body. You're shifting into this, I love myself. And that is sad. I could cry over how sad it is, but I'm happy that I'm seeing it. You have such a different lens because now your breath is helping you to shift out of the physical and you're learning just to be with yourself. I think a lot of times we look for this, and we'll talk about meditation here shortly too, this transcendental experience when we meditate. Like, I want to meditate like I'm tripping on shrooms. I want the floor to wave and I want to see all these colors. And like, everybody wants these big experiences. But sometimes to get to those big experiences, we go through the different levels. And the closest level to you right now is your experience here. And so it's like, okay, well, let's clear out all this yuck and guck that's holding me back from transcending into this higher space, right? AKA transcending your ego, but accepting and integrating it, right? So our spiritual body means meeting ourselves with wisdom. It means you'll have more deep meditative experiences and you'll connect with your higher self, which is why a lot of people connect with their higher self in energy work, because the intention in an energy healing session is to be loving, to be healing. Oh, I see your hurt. I see your ailment and I have compassion for you, right? So basically when you are connecting your spiritual body, you're just giving yourself an energy healing session, but you just might be doing it with sound, or you might do Reiki on yourself, but you also might just be doing it with your breath. but you hold space for yourself. And so often we want to go ahead and have this experience that we're like, oh, I need to listen to this guided meditation. Why isn't this working? This woman's voice is annoying. I don't like the background music. And we start to like go down this rabbit hole of like ridicule, when the reality is it's the ego not wanting to be seen. It's not about the guided meditation. It's not about the woman's voice. It's not about any of that. Typically, like I said, when we have that discomfort is the time to tell the ego, hey, their voice doesn't matter. And the ego will be like, what the F are you talking about? It is so irritating. And it's like, no, it's not. And when you start to talk to your own ego like that, you're not schizophrenic, you're just self-soothing, right? And so you start to really come into this space of, I'm okay to meet myself. I'm okay to sit in discomfort, which brings us to yoga, right? Yoga is about meeting your discomfort. It's about finding your quote unquote edge. And at the edge, at this discomfort, you transcend. Doesn't mean you push through your edge. You just experience it. You're like, oh, okay, this is our edge today. We stay here. We sit in it. Let's observe it. Same thing with meditation. Don't like this woman's voice. Really don't like it. Irritating me. Okay, let me just look at that irritation. Oh, it's really because I have a lot to do and I don't want to sit here and I want an excuse not to do this stupid meditation. But I also want to make sure that I'm taking care of myself, right? So common. It's so common. Guilty. I wouldn't know that dialogue if I hadn't had it myself. So very common, very normal, regardless of like, I have tripping on true meditations, but I'd be lying if I said I don't also have human days where I'm like, I don't want to sit here, right? But there's different ways to connect that spiritual body. And we'll talk about that when we get to meditation. But this body can show up as seeing or sensing someone else's authentic soul energy, auric body, or higher self. I'll give you an example because a lot of times people are like, what's that look like? How would I experience that? What's that mean? Sometimes you'll literally see other people's aura or their higher self, right? Like, this could also be like, this is kind of funny. It's like a walking lie detector. Like my friends and family tell me they bring me in public, but then they're like, we're only bringing you to tell us everybody like the truth of what they are. Right. And so when you start to practice this work a lot, you're kind of like a walking authenticity detector. It's kind of like, what's your authentic self? Can I see it? Are you there? And it's like, I've had people come in, they're just like they're very, they speak of themselves in a way. I'll just use that. I had somebody recently come to me and they were saying like, I don't really want a relationship. Like I'm not for relationships. It's fine. And I just looked at them. I said, why are you lying? I said, why are you lying to me? I said, it's okay. I said, it's okay to not be ready for one. I said, but I know you deeply love relationships and you really want a person. And they're like, why do you know this? And they got frustrated. But I worked with them for so long though. It was very comical. And then but with that conversation, with that dialogue, we got to explore the why. We got to explore the ego. We got to explore the block, right? And we got to say, okay, well, let's make that the focus. And they're like, yeah, I'd love to do that. And now they're like, hey, like I'm purging a lot of old anger and resentment about this one relationship. And like, I'm no longer holding on to it. It's like the anger is me realizing I don't want them. I just had anger. I was like, okay, perfect. Let's keep going. So it's things like that. It's knowing somebody's higher self, their truth, right? So guilty of this. Like, up until my near-death experience, I was a very frightening person. I know, maybe hard to believe, but frightening person. Wore all black eyeliner, like total emo chick. Never left the 90s, was just like stuck in it. And it's just like your New Jersey Italian, very, very nobody get close to me, to the point that my brother would say to me all the time, he goes, you know, like your RBF is like a little too intense. If we're going out to family dinner, like practice before you come. And I was like, okay. And he would want me to practice in the mirror, like smiling or being soft. And I was like, this is weird. And for the longest time, I thought, well, this is how New Jersey Italians are. Like I had that limiting belief. Like I grew up in like close to New York, Paterson, New Jersey, which is very dog eat dog world. So there's a very rigid lens. And when I moved down here, everybody was like holding the grocery store door open. I was like, what are you doing? This is so uncomfortable. And I realized that actually resonated with the part of me that I didn't feel safe to explore. And so being down here where it was slower, where it was a different frequency, allowed me to meet myself instead of me being programmed by the environment that I was birthed in. Does that make sense? So as we continue to progress through our journey, sometimes the environment, the people, the experiences, the thoughts, the feelings, all of these bodies that we interact with are pushing us to explore our authenticity. And they're not pushing us necessarily toward it, but sometimes they're pushing us to explore whether it's in alignment with us. I think so often we think, well, if I'm here, I'm meant to be here. It must be for me. But just because it's for you doesn't mean it's for your higher self. Maybe it's for you to meet a part of your ego. You ever be manifesting like a wonderful relationship and you end up with the narcissist? I have. And the purpose of it was for me to meet my codependent parts. The purpose of it was for me to see the parts of me that still needed to be addressed, that I wasn't sitting with, that I wasn't acknowledging. And so sometimes the experiences we encounter, although they have to do with the ego, they're helping you progress and integrate towards your higher self. Because without those experiences, without those traumas, I would not be this version of my higher self that I am today. And I've grown to love who I am today. Whereas 5 years ago, I probably would never thought that this would be who I am today at all. Right. So, and that's the glory of it. Questions, thoughts, comments. You guys are so talkative. I love it. Love it. It's great. Okay. So let's continue. Next. Okay. I touched on this. Yeah, we talked about this. And I believe I talked about this as well. So to not know your own bodies, to not have a deep and meaningful relationship with the awareness of yourself hinders your ability to see and experience the world, yourself, and others in the fullness of their authenticity. Okay, this is where life gets challenging, right? Because let's think of it this way. Let's say you think you know your authentic self 100%. And you don't see that there's a part of you that might have a distorted lens, right? And you're so like, no, I know my authenticity. I'm not distorted at all. That in and of itself is the distortion. Are you with me so far? So being open to other people and their lens, like I think family is the best example of this. Like if you're like, no, you're doing this and no, you're doing this. It's like, okay, instead of saying I'm not like that, maybe be like, am I like that? Why would they think of me in that way? Don't try to accept it. It's not for you to adopt, but hear them with curiosity. Hear them with the ability of being willing to explore it, right? Like if someone's like, you're selfish, ask yourself, am I being selfish? Do I understand why they see it that way? Is that a distortion of mine, or is it a distortion of theirs, or is it just a misunderstanding, right? I think I use selfish because it's very common when people start to set boundaries. And I think that that's a theme I've been seeing with clientele lately is setting boundaries. You're selfish. You don't call me. You don't care about the connection. And it's like this miscommunication of, no, I'm just learning to care for myself. And this is the time that I have for you. Does that work? Right? So that's an example of where you might have one person perceiving you through a lens that is distorted. Okay. But the same can happen from your side. So it's being willing to think and to explore, like, is my lens true? Should I open my lens a little more and explore it? Or is it healthy? Right. And that's what's going to help you to continuously evolve. Because I think we all have encountered, definitely, like we're human, we're bound to like think of ourselves one way and then someone says something and it leads us to exploring ourselves and be like, wow, okay, I should work on that. I should be a little better with that, right? And then it helps us. Instead of being butthurt that they called you out on something, it's like, wow, actually, that helped me. Thank you. Delivery could have been a little better, but I grew from it. appreciate it, right? We've all experienced it or maybe been the one given that information. But regardless, getting to a place where you can embody that higher self of like, okay, let me be educated will help you evolve. Okay. So that's why it's very important to know yourself. When you're being a healing practitioner, the 5 bodies, like this is so important. It's something that be mindful not to project your lens onto other people when you're doing a healing. Okay. And also be mindful that not everybody shares your lens, right? I've had clients come to me and they want to list all their autoimmune diseases. They want to list every ailment, what every doctor has said. I've even had clients say to me, well, I want to be your first client today because I want you at your best. I really need you at your best. And I'll tell them, well, everybody gets my best. So let's start your healing, right? And the reality is some people will have this lens that their physical ailments, those labels are identifying them. And so that's their lens. If they want to identify with their ailment, that's up to them. You can't reach inside of them. You can't change it. But what you can do is say, hey, I hear you. I understand your lens. I will flat out just say it just like that. I understand your lens. I want to kind of suggest the lens that I use in my work. And if you take what you want, adopt what you'd like, or discard it all, it's whatever you so choose, right? And it's a really healthy way to say to people, hey, like, I'm offering you to see your situation a little differently. And that's kind of where I go down the rabbit hole of explaining to people. So your physical body is your bulletin board, right? So although in this world we like to give things labels like autoimmune or cancer or PTSD, I say a lot of it is stored emotions in your body, which over time kind of start to overflow. When they overflow and they have no more space in the body, they manifest outside of it, which causes our ailments or our tumors or things to kind of form within us. Because that energy has to go somewhere. And we'll be like, oh, okay. And so I'll ask them, what age did you experience this, right? Around what was happening around that time? Or when did you start to feel like, so for like most common abuse, sexual assault or assault of any kind, there's a feeling of powerlessness. Awesome. Okay. So if I say the word powerless, is that something that resonates with you? Yeah. Okay. Well, can you remember kind of the first time when you felt that way? Did you experience it in childhood with a parent? Typically, yes, right? Always goes back to childhood, right? It's very similar to EMDR therapy, energy work, which is cognitive behavioral therapy technique that helps us process out emotions through bilateral stimulation. That's EMDR. Energy work does the very same thing. But when we ask questions, and some people are reluctant to even have dialogue because they don't want you to be fishing. Some people are very skeptic when they come. And I just tell them, hey, I'm an intuitive healer. If this is something you're skeptic of, like, I highly recommend us just kind of going right into it. So this way you could just experience it and not have any preconceived notions, right? But your self-awareness of what's yours and what's not yours is what's really going to be your superpower here. Because when you get into somebody's energy, and typically we work with people that have experienced a lot of the things that we've experienced, right? Because like attracts like in the higher realms, okay? Not the opposite. And so we attract a lot of people here in the 3D that want to achieve the frequency you're holding, but might be experiencing what old you experienced. So that's the opposite or polarity, but they're trying to move to the like and like. With me? Okay. So ego to higher self basically is the journey that we're guiding people to. And so when you know yourself and you have a healing session and someone comes and they're identifying with their labels, or I had a woman the other day who said that she thought a demon was on her and all of her chakras are blocked. And this is something I hear this a lot. I'm cursed. I have a demon. I have this. And I tell people like, hey, like everything, the way that we label things might differ. I said, but at the end of the day, energy is energy, right? And so what you might be labeling as a demonic entity or a low frequency, I might label as attachment. So if you hear me saying the word attachment, please know I'm not negating your experience or your feelings about it. It's simply that I have a different lens of it. And we could talk more about that after your session, after I get in there and see what's going on. I'm not really for the whole like demon thing. I think, again, energy has duality. What we perceive as dark or bad is just the opposite end, the very end of the spectrum that we're on. And so it's just showing you something. And so we got in there and her chakras were blocked. It was just attachments. Attachments are just, we'll get to that in shamanism, but just a good example of people's lenses. You don't want to negate them or make them feel like they're small or they're dumb or like it's not true, because their experience is valid. Like if it's frightening them, it's frightening them, regardless of what it's called, right? Regardless if it's autoimmune, regardless if they have cancer and their illness, whatever their illness may be. What if they're fearful that they're going to die young? I've experienced that a lot. A lot of young people coming, I'm so scared of dying young with this and that and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well, let's work on the fear in your body, not the ailment. Let's work on your fear. Get rid of your fear, right? Heal that. Allow you to feel safe. The nervous system. Let's work on your nervous system. Get it to calm down. Because if your nervous system's not calm, the rest of you is going to continue to perpetuate illness, right? You need to be calm to receive. But we're so fearful of, what if I can't calm down? What if I can't do this? That's where you go into a session, get rid of what you think will help them, and just hear them. They don't feel safe or they have fear or worry. Okay, so we'll fill the space with safety. And if they're resistant to safety, you fill it with whatever intuitively you're guided to. It could even be whatever's of your highest good. But you don't want to project your lens of what you think they need or what you think should be done, because thinking's from the ego. Your deep knowing is your intuition. Your emotional guide is your intuition. Your higher self, or that little voice in the back of your head, is your intuition. We don't think here. Don't think. Just go and trust. And that's why a lot of people, when they start energy healing, the first wound within themselves they address is their self-doubt, or their lack of trust in their abilities, or their lack of trust in their intuition. It's typically the first one that we start to explore. Okay. Questions? Told you, lots of information, guys. The first like 2-3 classes are going to be a lot of talking. After that, we're going to get into more like hands-on stuff. Okay, promise. Oh. 2 seconds. I need some sustenance. Okay. Let's talk about different types of energy healing. Who here has experienced sound healing or sound baths, even if you listen through headphones? Have you two? No, have you ever done a sound bath? I think you're muted, my dear.
Not that I mean, I'm starting to explore it on YouTube. I see these sound, deals, and I'm starting to get interested in that, but not historically, no.
Okay. I love sound healing. I really do. I actually have sound bowls myself, and I am a sound therapist. I don't do it with my work right now because I feel like I'm doing enough currently. But sound baths are a great thing to do in a group setting or even individually. Even if you want to get a sound bowl for yourself, get a single bowl. I typically recommend getting a heart chakra or a root bowl. And the reason being is, well, let me talk about sound bowls in general. So sound bowls, like we saw with the somatics plate, right? The sound created a sacred geometry. Like I was talking about with the gong and how it creates a difference in our cellular structure. Sound bowls, when you go around a sound bowl, or even if you listen to them online, you'll start to hear, it almost sounds like it's going from one ear to the other, and it starts to go back and forth. What this is doing is it's shifting your consciousness into theta state. Theta state is the state of mind we go into right before we fall asleep and right before we wake up in the morning. It's also the state of deep trance, but it's also your gateway to the subconscious mind. So when we have the sound bowl playing, the frequency is tuned to resonate with one of the 7 chakras typically. So you have root, sacral, solar, heart, throat, third eye, crown. And so as we go through the sound bowls, You'll notice you might feel them in different parts of your body. You might get emotional. I know for me, I have a certain, and I can share it in the group chat. I think I've shared it with, I think only one of you have actually shared this playlist with of the frequencies for the sound bowl healings, but I'll put it on the bulletin on the website for you guys too. But I know when I listen to sound bowls, they're what helped me shift into a transcendental meditation. I'm very sensitive to sound, and you'll notice that maybe you meditate better with sound, maybe you meditate better with silence. It's all going to be different for each one of us, the way that we explore energy healing, because your energy is going to be different than my energy. So what resonates with your frequency might be different than what resonates with mine. I know when I first started, it was meditations with affirmations. That would shoot me up to the other side real quick. And then I was like, these aren't doing it for me. And then it turned into exercise, like walking and listening to affirmations, like I had to physically be moving. And I noticed as I went through my journey, I was like, wow, first it was my mental body, then it was my physical body. Now it's my emotional body, the music, right? And so every time you transcend, what resonates with you is going to be different. So now it's like music with affirmations on a walking pad in my kitchen. And it's like, all these things. So you'll notice as you continue, you might end up with acupuncture needles in your face at the same time. Who knows? But you're going to be connecting with different parts of you, and the way that you heal is going to change over time. And I think that's one of the more challenging things is as you progress in your journey. I think some of you, we've talked about this. The way that you heal now might be different than how you healed 4 years ago. So if you're trying to figure out what you need to feel better right now, and you're like, this isn't working, this used to always work. Why isn't it working? You're not who you were when it worked for you then. And that's okay. So sound healing, the frequency it emits is going to resonate with the chakra. And so for instance, if I have a client with a lot of anxiety, I would use the root, right? The root bowl, and we'll get into chakras another day. The root chakra has a frequency that resonates with safety, security, and being comfortable in the physical. So obviously, if someone's having anxiety, they might tend to sway more towards anxiousness, wanting to disassociate, not liking overstimulation. So I don't want to play a high-pitched bowl like the smaller bowls that resonate with their upper chakras. We want to play softer, lower, denser sounds that bring them out of their disassociated state back into the body. So with sound bowls, you're working with theta state. It shifts them back and forth. But to be honest, every form of energy healing works with theta state. EMDR therapy that you would do in a counselor, a therapist office, shifts your mind into theta state. So when people come, and this is my work's very trauma based though. I work with a lot of people that have a lot of things trauma. That's just my interest, so I guess it's what I attract. But I have noticed that if you work with people that do have trauma of some sort and they're coming for Reiki for a calming, relaxing experience, please tell them that this is going to open their subconscious, that this is a healing modality that helps them process emotions, thoughts, physical sensations at a subconscious level. It's doing the same thing as EMDR therapy. And so it's normal for the day after or a few days after to be tired or to feel like you want to purge or you want to cry or you want to work through things. So in the moment, yeah, it can be extremely relaxing. And afterward, people typically feel much lighter because they've released all of this stuff, right? But as they go through this release, energetically, the next few days, the rest of their bodies, right? So their spiritual body just processed it. They feel light and fluffy. Now their nervous system's going to process, which means that their mind, their emotions, and their physical body is going to want to process. So this might be that physically they're tired, mentally they're confused, and emotionally they're drained, right? Or it could be emotionally they feel better, mentally they feel more optimistic, and physically they have more vitality. Everybody's going to swing to one side of the spectrum. And the way that they process is going to be different session to session, depending on what it is they're processing out. But to say that energy healing is woo-woo or spiritual and it's not working with the subconscious mind or the rest of their body in a very holistic way is ignorant, right? Because it's having this trickle effect on their cellular structure, on their subconscious mind, and their nervous system. So basically what you're doing, whether you're doing sound healing or energy healing, you are holding space for somebody to finally feel safe. And when they feel safe and their nervous system's regulated, they begin to have the ability subconsciously to allow themselves to feel what maybe they didn't feel safe enough before to experience. You're holding a safe space for people to be able to experience what might have been deeply hidden or suppressed. Does that make sense? Starting to understand how not woo-woo energy work is? I see Sherry's face is like, I think a lot of people are under the impression that like it's very spiritual, it's very this, and like when you get the science behind it, it helps it become so much more tangible. And like, wait, this is normal. Like it's normal. Like all we're doing is I'm basically, as an energy healer, filling my body with the intention of I'm creating a bubble of safety that radiates down through my hands, down through my head, through my hands, all around this person. And anything that doesn't resonate with the safety is now transforming and connecting with them, right? And by doing that, you're working with their energy field. You're working with the energy they're radiating, that their nervous system's radiating. And you're starting to connect with their consciousness because that energy automatically shifts them into theta state. Because it's rooted in your subconscious. It's rooted in your intention. And so your intention is connecting with my subconscious. Subconscious connection, theirs goes into it, which is why a lot of people report, I feel like I'm asleep, but I'm not asleep. I see colors. I feel this. I feel that. I feel like you're touching me, but I know you're not touching me. And it's because they're beyond the physical. They're in a trance. They're experiencing their higher self and they're witnessing. So when people are like, I can't get my brain to calm down, and then they have a session like that, they can get their brain to calm down. They might not know how to yet. And so as you continue exploring sound bowls or energy healing, meditation, mindfulness, which we'll talk about shortly, any of these types of energy healing, you're training your nervous system to feel safe, to be a conscious observer. So as an energy healer, you're helping people to feel safe, to be a conscious observer. When other people practice energy healing, whether it be sound, meditation, acupuncture, yoga, they're creating a space for themselves to be a conscious observer and to feel safe to do so. Make sense? Okay. Energy healing. When you hear energy healing, I know like even if you look at my site, there's energy healing, there's crystal healing. When we say energy healing, this is a healing modality that does not use other tools. It's just your energy, right? So when we say energy healing, you're just working with energy. You're not working with crystals and using the energy of another tool. You're just using the energy of you and the person in front of you. So it's simply a practitioner that channels, right, or acts as a conduit. When we say channel, it means, and I think that's where a lot of people think this is a spiritual thing, but it's the same as like if you were to sit and take deep breaths and tell yourself over and over, I am peaceful and I am safe. You are channeling a new frequency of being peaceful and safe, right? So as a practitioner, you're channeling a very pure, white, clean energy. You're having the intention of, I have a pure, white, healing energy flowing down through my crown, down through my shoulders, my arms, and out through my hands. And it continues through my body, but it's flowing through all of me like water. And I am a conduit. That is it. The practitioner's a conduit. Where it starts to tiptoe on, is it spiritual or is it religious, is at the practitioner's discretion on whether or not they want to call in angels, spirits, deities, guides, things like that. That's where the religious or spiritual component comes in. And that's practitioner. That like even when we get into Reiki, you'll see that they don't say, call in your guides in traditional Reiki. They say, no, you're a conduit of universal life force. That is it. You're not calling in any of these things, but it's something that has been implemented into the practice as an additional tool, as an additional resource to help your intuition throughout the session. Does that make sense?
So like, do you pull in these other, I don't know what we call them, entities or?
I do. Yeah. I work with a lot of them, but a lot of that has to do with shamanism, but also my near-death experience. When I had my near-death experience, And it's funny because I was raised Jewish and I was also raised Catholic. So I had a bat mitzvah, also had a baptism. All it's very conflicting. Um, and so when I had my near-death experience, I grew up in a house that was very fluid. It's very whatever you want to believe, but we're going to expose you to as much that we know, so you get to choose. And that was great. And then my grandma was the one who was like, "Hey, tarot readers and crystals." And I was like, "Okay, I'm getting all of it." So when I had my near-death experience, I went to the other side and I saw Jesus and I had 7 blue figures behind me, which I, in my mind, just had that deep knowing, right? That consciousness, that higher knowing of, oh, it's the archangels. And so when I'm in a healing session, sometimes they come in, but other times I get animals and whatnot through like the shamanic lens that I was also guided to. I don't know if I had told you I had a near-death experience or not. Actually, no, I was thinking about it with Cherry. Had I told you that? I didn't think so. I was like, I probably just freaked her out a little bit.
Why? You're not freaking me out. So will we experience that, or is that just something that
Sometimes people do. When a practitioner is working on a client, your channels do connect. And so for instance, like when you see purple in a session, I'm working on your third eye or your crown, right? You're connecting with my channel, but what you see is going to translate in a way that you understand it, right? So when I went to the other side, they showed me Jesus. To translate to me, it's a divine energy. Not to translate to me a religious figure, but to translate to me, hey, you're in the presence of a very divine and loving energy, because they knew my brain would understand what that meant. They didn't show the angels in front of me in wings. They showed it as blue healing light behind me. Why? I didn't know until I started doing Reiki. And when I started doing Reiki, I was struggling to visualize white. I would visualize blue in one hand and white in the other. And I would feel all these figures behind me, and they were always with me. And so that's their way of basically prefacing for me what it would feel like when I come back. And so the way that I see and sense things in my mind might translate differently for you. When I see blue figures, you might see blue light. When I think of a dove, you might see or feel like a breeze, like wings brushing air over you. Your experience is going to translate the channel in the way that your mind will understand it. Like I have clients saying to me, I felt like something was being pulled out of me. And I'll be like, well, I kind of was over here, just like taking some stuff out of that area. Right. Or I'll say to them, I had somebody just the other day where I was lifting all this heaviness out of their throat. And I said, and then it just released. And they said, yeah, like it's so weird. Like towards the end of the session, like my throat was tight the whole time. At the end, I just felt this lightness. And it's because I just got done telling them I was lifting all these rocks off your chest, off your throat. Things like that. And so the way that you experience what I'm doing energetically or what I see energetically is going to be the way in which it makes sense to you or the way in which you need to receive it right now.
But will we as practitioners actually like see like entities and stuff like that?
Yeah, if you want to, if it's one of your gifts, there's some people who don't see, there's some people who do. I explain the gifts and we'll talk about this more as we get into the Reiki portion, but think of seeing, emotionally feeling, physically feeling sensations, hearing, or deep knowing. Think of them all as different languages that belong to different countries, right? If I haven't traveled to the country that speaks the language of sight, probably not going to see much, right? And each country is a different state of consciousness, but you could travel to them in any order. The way in which your gifts come online are going to happen in the way in which your consciousness is ready to receive them. So you might feel emotionally first. Like I have one client, I have one student, when she first started, she wasn't sure if she was going to see. And she's very emotional. She would feel everything and she would like cry. She's working on me. I'm like, you got to get this under control, girl. You got to stop crying every time you do it. And it would be like practicing to hone that in. And then once she figured out how to feel the emotion and observe it, she started to see. And she's like, I'm seeing things. I'm seeing colors. Oh, I see like it's almost like something's on your side over here. And it's because she learned how to speak that one language. They're like, okay, next language, right? It's like Rosetta Stone for spirituality. It's great. It's fabulous. Questions? No? Make sense? Okay. Perfect. If it doesn't, feel free to ask more questions, really. Like, it's okay. You also have the forum to ask questions on there if you sit with it for a while and you have more questions about it. Because I know like a lot of people are like, am I going to see dark things? Am I going to see bad things? Let's be very, very clear. Your light is stronger than anything. And I'm going to tell you right now, I've been doing this for 7 years, and any dark thing that shows up big and bad, I look at it and I'm like, you're actually this small. So stop trying to scare me, because it's just a part of them trying to protect them. It is. Even if it's something from another person, it's just a part of them trying to control or protect. And you're like, hey, you don't need to do that here. I hear you. It's like, think of every yucky thing you ever see as a kid throwing a tantrum. I promise you, you will be unfazed and it all goes away, because it's not like when I first started, I had a very Wiccan lens. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Wicca, but it's basically like witchcraft kind of lens. And that's just because my Reiki practitioner who I studied under was Wiccan. And so it's what I was shown. And then I didn't really resonate for me. And I worked under a shaman for a year. And so the Wiccan have a lens of, if you see something dark, you ground it and you banish it. And I was like, this just feels like I'm banished, like I'm demonizing things without really understanding them. And that didn't fly for me. I'm a very inquisitive person. I like to understand it. And so as I worked under the lens of shamanism, I really preferred that lens because it sees any darkness as simply duality. And it looks at that darkness as like, it's just parts of the energy. It like even makes me want to cry talking about it. I think it's super emotional. And it's like, you look at these darkness and you see it as parts that need love, that need compassion. And so you say, hey, I see that you want their light. I see that you want to take space in this vessel, but this vessel's not yours to take space in. So I send you into the earth. I return you to the mother, right? With love and with healing, with compassion. Because think about it. We come into this earth, and then when we die, we go back into the earth. We decompose in the dirt. So everything's a cycle of returning to the earth. So when you ground this darkness, quote unquote darkness, right? You have dark and light. It doesn't mean good or bad. It's just different frequency. When you ground this energy into the earth, you get to this place of like, I'm giving you the opportunity to be reborn. And I set the intention, the energy of when you're in this earth, you will be reborn with healing and loving energy to radiate. You're transmuting it. It can't do you any harm. I was in a session the other day. It was actually the woman who thought she had a demon on her. And yeah, she had this ex-partner that was like in the session was coming toward my energy, like with like a dagger. And shamanism daggers are energies of betrayal. And there was a lot of betrayal healing that we were doing. And it was interesting because he first presented as a past loved one. And I said, I know that you're not past, because I'm a medium. It's very normal when you do this work, you have mediumship too. Not because I think everybody can be a freaking medium. I think it's just a state of consciousness. And when you practice enough, you're going to see it's all energy, right? Like you have energy now. When you die, you still have energy. You're just in a different form, right? Your physical body might not be pumping blood and heartbeat. It might be in the ground, but your energy's there. And that's why your soul never dies. So when you're doing energy work, it's just energy. Everything's energy. It just has different forms. So mediumship, another label for just reading energy, right? This guy's coming at me with a dagger, and I knew that energetically he wasn't someone who's passed. And so I said, my little radar of authenticity, I know that you're lying. And it showed this abusive past partner. And so I took the dagger and I said, well, you don't need to be scared of me just because I see you, and reparented that part of him that was just really scared because he showed his malicious side. And he had shame about that, showing his malicious side. And she had been holding on to that fear of seeing that side again, which is why he was showing up in her energy. So do a lot of healing on that, and then ground him into the earth with the intention of, I ground this shame that you're holding. I ground this malicious energy you're holding, and I allow you to heal and return to your soul in this incarnation with love and healing, right? We don't wish somebody malicious because they might be doing malice, right? Because the reality is it's just a very wounded part of them. The more you heal and love, not heal, but more you get to know yourself, because you're always going to be healing, the more you're able to work with those things, right? So, for instance, I attract those things because it's similar to things I've experienced in my life. And it's Spirit's way of testing me of like, can you have compassion for the very thing that hurt you, right? And so you attract all those things to integrate your ego, to be able to say, hey, like, I've seen this, I experienced this, but I still want the best for you. Even if what you did was hurtful and painful to this person. Like, you're human, you're a soul, you're an energy, and in this incarnation, it's an experience you had to learn. And who am I to judge it? I wish you the best on your healing journey. And then you sage yourself like crazy. Okay? Always sage like crazy. Okay. So is that answer more of your question, like the darkness, like the fear of seeing dark or malicious thing? Is that kind of what more so what you're leaning toward?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I've read about and thought about, so. It's like,
Yeah. I
test
know. I've
yourself.
had I know I think I've only told one of you. I had a woman work with me and she had very strong roots in the church. And long story short, we were working together. She made fabulous progress in her work, but then the shame of finding healing outside of her religious affiliation is what came in. And instead of addressing it and working on it, projected it and brought me an entire envelope full of practitioners who had renounced their work and claimed that they were doing the devil's work, right? And so she basically came in and was like shaming my work and telling me that I was doing dark magic on her and she wasn't really healed. And we had a very lengthy talk about religion because she doesn't know that I'm an ordained minister and all these lovely things I could just share with her. And she said, you don't have a Bible. And meanwhile, it's sitting right there on my bookshelf in front of her, and baptized, all these things, she made so many assumptions. And it's a lot of times when people speak of these things, they're very ignorant to what actually is going on. So that's why I like to teach this class with a lens of science. So when people say or suggest those things, you say, actually, energy healing is just a glorified form of co-regulation. And like, even if they go down the religious rabbit hole, because she was saying, well, you say you're channeling something. And I said, okay, well, when you pray, are you not opening yourself to speak to a higher power? Are you not channeling the energy to connect with them, to feel them close to you? And well, yeah. Okay, well, what you called Jesus, and if I call it Jesus, that's cool too. I saw it when it died. But I asked her, I said, did you see him and meet him, or is your relationship with him one that you were born into? Is it personal, or is it something that you were put in a belief system for? Do you have a personal experience with them? Well, no. And I said, I'm not saying my experience is better, but it's personal. And so there's ways to go about these conversations. Because they're bound to come up. I've been asked quite often about the religious side of things. Specifically, like if I feel like I'm sinning. And I said, there's a lot of parallels, and we'll get into this with Reiki 1 between religious figures and Reiki. But the reality is, at the end of the day, just because there's stories of religious figures and there's parallels to that with Reiki, the stories themselves, just because they're included in religious texts, doesn't mean that the act itself was religious. Meaning, like, it could be a story just about a guy who did something really good. And because it's a good story, they put it in a religious text. You get what I mean? So just because there's a story in Reiki that parallels one of these very popular stories of healing the masses, doesn't mean it's religious. It could just be a story of a man who found a very healthy way to heal lots of people without being religious. Does that make sense? And that's where a lot of people get that very, like, I want to fight you tooth and nail on it. And it's kind of like, but I'm not here to fight. You can have your belief. I can have mine. That's cool. Take what you'd like. Leave the rest. At the end of the day, here's the science behind it. Let's talk about that, right? Because then there's no argument. There's no argument. And I don't work with people who need me to defend it though either. And like, it was, this particular client was really interesting. We worked together for probably 6 months and they made incredible changes and strides in a lot of various areas of their life. And it really baffled me. And she brought it as a birthday present, which was even more very distorted. And so, like, for instance, clients like that, I just say like, hey, I really enjoyed our time together, but this is where it ends. I say, I wish you the best on your journey. You're not allowed to book with me moving forward. And I have them blocked on my site. I do. They're not allowed to book with me. And as a practitioner, you get to dictate who you work with and how long you work with them. I've fired clients as well, not for anything religious or belief system wise. That's the only one that was offensive with the religion. Everybody else was very understanding and continue to work with me because they understand it's not a religion. When you explain the science behind it, they start to really grasp it a lot more, and they kind of come off that fearful ledge of, oh, is this demonic or dark or malicious? And it's like, no, it's just your energy, just having this very loving intention for you. But you definitely get to dictate who and where and for how long you work. I go through this regularly. I have people who want to book 2 healing sessions back to back because they want 2 hours of what they think will be a spa day when actually you'll be overstimulating them. They'll get overstimulated. An hour, 45 minutes is enough for a healing, energetic healing. 2 hours, you cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Go home, go meditate. Don't do that to yourself. You want to be blasted with white light, it's going to overstimulate you. Your body can only hold so much. Okay. So that's something that's my lens of it. If you start to practice and you're like, 2 hours is good for me, I can do that, go for it. Whatever floats your boat. Don't be limited by the way that I practice. I want you to explore it. I want you to figure out what works for you. But for me, our healing sessions are my max. Anybody that books 2 back to back, I email them. I say, hey, I don't offer 2 back to back just for your own good, so you don't get overstimulated. I have an opening this day, this time. Does that work? And that's it. Okay. Questions on anything? We kind of went down a rabbit hole. Ready? Okay. Meditation and mindfulness regulates the nervous system. We're going to talk about this in depth in a second. And it also helps improve sleep, your self-awareness, and your stress levels. Grounding, there's things like grounding sheets and grounding mats now that are really effective for grounding. The only thing about grounding in a meditative manner is that it will constantly change for you. So if you feel like, gosh, I used to ground and it used to be so easy and now I can't ground for the life of me, it's because the way that you experience the energy of the earth is probably shifting. So if you used to ground and visualize roots going into the earth, and it's not working for you, maybe listen to some root chakra sound bowls and breathe and feel your body sinking down and down and down. Or lay on the floor and allow yourself to sink into the floor, right? Or maybe take deep breaths in of the fresh air and feel yourself sinking into the earth. Whatever works for you. I have some people who can't visualize still, and they use more of a sensation meditation, feeling their feet magnetize towards the ground, towards the floor. And as their feet magnetize towards the ground, they feel their feet diving deep through the dirt, right? You could use more tactile descriptions for yourself if that works. If you're struggling to visualize, think about how it would feel emotionally, physically, mentally, to have your feet sinking into the sand after a wave just washed over them, things like that. But grounding, I feel, is one of the things most people really struggle with. And we'll go over that here shortly too. Wow, this is a lot of information for one day. Okay. Yoga. Love yoga. I'm a yoga teacher, fun fact. So with yoga combines all of your bodies into one space, which is amazing. I love yoga as a practice. When you practice it daily, I promise you will see such a drastic change in your life. This is one of the first things I explored as my paralysis was going away. Some of you might know, some of you might not know. I was paralyzed for a year on my right side. And my first dipping my toes into holistic healing because nothing was working was Reiki. And so after Reiki, I was able to finally like sit up on my own without having to like push or figure out how to get up. And after that, I did meditating and I started to affirm to my body, to my cells. I set the intention that I could walk. And once I could walk, I started to explore yoga. And so when I started to explore the edge of my body, I started to meet my spirit, right? And so when you get into a regular practice of yoga, it regulates your nervous system in such an incredible way. It's so common to cry. Like I know when I first started practicing yoga, even at a studio, I'd be like in the background, like, nobody see me. I'm not crying right now. I'm not crying. And I'd be like bawling my dang eyes out. And what it does is it regulates your nervous system, but because you're being guided through movements, you're forced to be present, to feel your body. You have to breathe, right? They cue the breath. You have to breathe because you'll realize in certain postures, if you have too much air in your stomach, you can't even bend to get into the pose properly, at least, right? You have to exhale so you have space to reach, to expand, to open your chest, to rotate, all of these things. And so yoga is an incredible way to align all of your bodies through your breath. You're regulating your nervous system through the movement, the physical body. With the nervous system regulated, you process emotions. With the guided yoga, you're allowing your mind to be present. And in turn, with those aligned, you start to have this very transcendental experience at the end when you go into the Shavasana. Or if you're doing yoga nidra, it will be a very deep 23, 24 relaxation where you feel yourself kind of floating and really letting go. Yoga is a great practice. Highly recommend. Check it out. YouTube videos are great too. You can do it in the comfort of your home, so you don't have to be in a studio and embarrass yourself potentially. Right? Cool. Most studios are very accepting. I would recommend trying out a Yoga 6 if you have a Yoga 6 near you. That's where I go, and their classes are the same regardless of where you go, but their culture is very welcoming, whereas some yoga studios tend to be a little because they are more boutique. At least I've noticed here and up north, very boutique based. So it just really depends on your demographic and also what chain you're going to, if you're going to a chain. Questions on that? No? Cool. Pranayama and breath work. Kind of touched on this at meditation, the vagus nerve, and yoga. Breath work helps shift our state of consciousness to higher and deeper states, depending on the type of breath we're exploring. There's certain breaths that really activate your energy, and that will kind of activate more of your masculine energy. And then there's breath work that activates more of the feminine, and it's more calming and it's more relaxing. The feminine is what's really going to open up your intuitive senses. Your masculine is what's going to open up your manifestation portals, typically, and a lot of vitality. Acupuncture. I love me some acupuncture. I think in my own experience as an energy practitioner, I prefer acupuncture over someone else doing Reiki on me. You experience Reiki every day if you're doing it as your job. Go get a massage, go get acupuncture, let yourself kind of get out of the realm of shifting your consciousness into that state. Allow one of your other bodies to be stimulated, right? So the physical body with acupuncture, yoga, again, the physical body, your mental, emotional, breath work, bringing you more into the present, doing more grounding breath work, especially if you're doing energy work on a regular basis. Stimulating your 5 bodies through a different medium will probably help you stay more balanced and aligned, and also stop you from getting energetically burnt out. That makes sense. Acupuncture works with the energetic meridians, which we will talk about with shamanism. In shamanism, they're called the rivers of light. They're basically these lines, these pathways that run down the body, and they have little points on them. Those points are where they place the acupuncture needles, because those points are where we would express or see blockages, but it's also where we can activate the energy. So it's kind of like if I have a pipe and there's a bunch of hair here and a bunch of hair here, I stick a needle in, oh, all the hair's removed. I stick a needle here, all the hair's removed. That energy, that water flows through that pipe very well. That's how a meridian works. That's the purpose of acupuncture. And every meridian affects an organ, an energetic flow. Just like your chakras, they affect multiple areas of your body. Massage and body work is another great way to detox the body. It's also considered energy work. There's some massage therapists that are also Reiki therapists. I know quite a few of those. But it's a great way to relax the nervous system within reason. If you've experienced like assault of any sort, I know for me, after experiencing abuse and assault, going for a massage is actually a way I challenge myself outside of my physical comfort zone to be comfortable with other people touching me again. And so in any kind of work, even with Reiki, we'll talk about this too, like with hand placements, where and how to place your hands to not trigger somebody who might have experienced assault of some form. Massage and body work, yes, it could regulate the nervous system, but it could also be a way that some people explore releasing trauma stuck in the body, right? There's certain forms of massage that work on this that are specific for, like cranial sacral is a great one for exploring your vagus nerve and any damage to the nerves at the base of your skull and neck, right? I explored that one after my TBI near-death experience, and it's very stimulating to like the blood flow to the brain and to your nervous system, whereas a full body or Swedish massage can relieve tension and tightness that is in the body due to trauma or just muscles and discomfort and day-to-day activities. So great way to detox, especially if you do lymphatic massage basically drains your lymph nodes. So anything where your major lymph nodes are in your body, down into your thymus, and then it starts to really process it out. I had one of those for the first time recently and it was pretty cool. I definitely noticed a detox shortly after. Really, really cool. I like massage and body work. I think it's anything physical I find is very grounding if you do this on a regular basis. So I'm going to read through these 4 types of meditations, but please know there's so many types of meditations. These are just some of the main ones that we're going to discuss today. You have mindfulness. So this is a technique in which you basically are sitting, you're present, you're aware. It's kind of like, okay, I feel the anxiety in my body, or I feel my chest rising and falling, or I feel my breath. You're just observing. You're being mindful. Oh, I have tension in my shoulders, right? No judgment, like, let's release that, right? Or I feel tightness in my back, or I feel like I'm pushing my chest out too much, right? Things like that. You're just observing what you're doing. You're just being mindful of the space. You could even just sit with your eyes closed and be mindful of, oh, I hear a lawnmower outside. I hear birds. I hear this. I hear that. Just be mindful of the space around you. It's very grounding. Then you have transcendental. Transcendental is where we rise above the current state of consciousness. And so typically this could be achieved by simply breathing to a mantra, meaning that you would inhale and exhale while repeating in your mind, I am one, I am one, I am one. A lot of people do this with Om, which when you say it is actually Om. It's A-U-M. It's an ah, Om. What that does is it actually stimulates your vagus nerve by creating a deep vibration in your chest that goes towards your back. So like when people hum, it's regulating their vagus nerve. It's a very deep vibration inside your body. And so it starts to relax you. So when we start to say Om, it relaxes the vagus nerve, it relaxes your nervous system, and you start to transcend because you're in this very calm space. So when you chant Om, it would be Om. And then the end of it, because typically when they teach it, it's you have 4 boxes. You have the A, the U, the M, and space. Give yourself some space to feel the vibration. And then you would say it again. And so typically it's 1 to 2 seconds, sometimes 5. You sit in that space and you repeat it. You just let your eyes be closed. And some people have their hands in prayer, some on their chest. But this is a great way to not only calm yourself, but to experience beyond yourself. You don't have to say Om if for some spiritual, religious belief system, whatever, doesn't resonate with you, because it is rooted in Sanskrit and Buddhist text. So that one is rooted in a belief system. But you can also say things like, I am connected to the all. I am one with the universe. I am love. I feel love. I express love. You could choose any of those mantras, 1, 2, or 3, right? I am love. I express love. I feel love. I am love. I express love. I feel love. You can say 3 mantras over and over, but the point is with a mantra, it's repetitive. So there's typically a theme. So, right, love being the theme of the example I just shared, or it could be another one where it's I am one. I am one. Your hands can be in prayer. They can be in the oneness mudra. They could be open on your palms. They could be doing whatever floats your boat. But with a transcendental meditation, it typically is a mantra that you repeat aloud or in your head that is for you to connect with the oneness. Because there are loving kindness meditations where you have a mantra and you repeat it over and over, but the intention is to embody a loving and kind frequency. So that'd be, I am love, I am kindness, and I am compassion. I am love, I am kindness, I am compassion. That'd be a loving kindness meditation. You would repeat mantra that helps shift your frequency, that you're telling your cells, I embody this. That does not mean that your loving kindness meditation cannot also be transcendental, though, right? I am love, I am kindness, I am one with all. You could have a little bit of both of them together, but you don't need the whole kitchen sink. Allow yourself to explore each one, see what feels good, and see if, because they will feel differently. If we had time, I'd be exploring them one by one in my one-on-one sessions. That's what we do. And we just do it for 5 minutes each. If you would like to do that, I highly recommend doing it. I highly recommend just sitting and just put a 5-minute timer on your phone and just sit in silence. And then for your next 5 minutes, sit in mindfulness and just be aware of what's going on around you. Next 5 minutes, practice loving kindness. I am love, I am peace, and just do that over and over and over. And then for the one after that, you could do I am one, or you can chant Om, whatever works for you. Because just with those 25 minutes of meditation, done. 25 minutes to explore it, right? And then you might find the one that you really like, and maybe you want to journal about how each one feels, because I promise you, frequency wise, they will feel different. They will feel different in your body. They will feel different in your cells. They will feel different in your head. They'll feel different in your voice and your heart. Okay. So explore that. What you doing? Let's go. Breath work. When I post this, you guys can read through this. I've actually included different types of breathing for you, but please, just for like liability, check with a licensed health professional before exploring any breath work, right? If you're pregnant, if you have high blood pressure, if you have any cognitive disorders, exploring breath work can actually be something that exacerbates anything that you're currently experiencing, because it's going to raise the amount of oxygen in your blood, which means your blood will flow to your organs much faster. So if you're on medications for stroke or heart, high blood pressure, things like that, it could also be something that doesn't benefit you. So explore it at your own free will, at your own pace. Check with a licensed health professional before doing anything that's crazy. Ocean breath is one that anybody and everybody can do. It's known as an Ujjayi breath. It's kind of like fogging the mirror, but with your nose. So you would basically inhale, and when you fog the mirror through your mouth, instead of blowing out your mouth to fog it, you keep your lips closed and you have the same tightness in the back of your throat that you would when you fog a mirror, but you exhale through the nose. And you'll notice that the breath sounds like an ocean. And it sounds very oceanic as you breathe in and out because of that little constriction in the back of your throat. So explore these, whatever floats your boat. I have quite a few. Box breathing. Box breathing is incredible. If you struggle with anxiety, struggle with stress, a dysregulated nervous system, box breath all day. They use this in the military to calm sniper rifles before they shoot a target. So this way they're very still, they're very calm, they're very regulated. I love it. I do it with a lot of my clients that are like high on the trauma scale. I do it with a lot of my law enforcement, military guys, and they're all very familiar with it. But it's basically you breathe in for a count of 4, you hold for 4, you exhale for 4, you hold for 4. Inhale, 4, hold. Exhale, hold. Inhale, hold. Exhale, hold. All for the same 4 seconds. You could do, I say 4, start with 4. Don't strain your lungs trying to do a 6 count. See if 4 is easy, then go to 5 seconds, then go to 6, so on and so forth. With box breath, it's typically 4 to 6. When you get to the 7, 8 count breath, that's when you're stimulating more than relaxing. Okay. Thoughts? Questions? Cool. Okay. 3-part breath. If you've taken a yoga class, you're probably very familiar with this breath, where you breathe into the belly, then you breathe into your diaphragm, then you breathe into your chest. You exhale from chest, belly, chest, ribs, belly. Inhale, belly, ribs, chest. Exhale, chest, ribs, belly. It's just expanding and bringing a very mindful awareness to where your breath is in your body. This is great if you have trouble sleeping. It's a really good one to do at night to help you relax and to kind of ground yourself into your physical, because it brings such deep awareness to where your breath is flowing. Okay. Okay. Who has tried grounding and absolutely can't stand it? None of you have tried grounding? Did you like it? A little
I
bit.
like grounding. Yeah, I walk all the time.
I could see that with you though. I could see that. You're very la-di-da, very grounded. Yes, you are. I'm the opposite. Grounding, when I first started my spiritual practice, and I find this with a lot of the people I work with, they find grounding very challenging to do in a meditative fashion. Grounding outside, very different. I find that very comforting, like to be by the water, be in the mountains, be in the
Right.
grass, very easy to ground there. Makes sense. You're connecting literally with the ground, with the earth.
Right.
To ground through your mind, to ground with the intention of visualizing roots or visualizing a cord of red energy going from the base of your tailbone into the earth. I find some people, if not many, this is the most challenging aspect of their practice when they're trying to begin their practice.
Right.
So grounding is the process of connecting with the physical realm, Mother Earth, the physical body, your root chakra, Earth Star. People are like, what the F is this chick talking about when I say Earth Star? Your Earth Star is an additional chakra. It goes beyond your basic 7 chakras. So this is part of the extended chakra system. It's between the soles of your feet. This chakra represents your connection with Mother Earth. Your root represents the connection with the physical world, meaning your physical body, your fight or flight primal response, right? Your health, your vitality. It has to do with your physical experience, your material world, your home, all this. Whereas your Earth Star is the earth. It connects you to the earth. So to be rooted in your body and to be rooted in your body that's rooted in the earth are 2 very different things. So when we say grounded, it means that you're connected not only to your physical body. Sorry, my Italian hand was getting a little out of control there. Well, not only in your physical body. It's funny, I haven't seen that in years. It's so funny. Thanks, because my grandma moved down here. That's probably why like attracts like. It's all coming back. And so rooted in the body, but then you're also rooted into the earth. It's this energy of feeling yourself connected to this safe, secure support of a force field of energy around you. When you're really rooted to the earth, you will feel like if I lift my foot right now, I ain't going anywhere. I'm not moving. Like when you're in your body and you're in the earth at the same time, you're in this space of like, no matter where I walk, it's like if I lift my foot, roots are lifting and going back into the earth. Roots are lifting, going back into the earth. It's like with every step, you have this energetic cord that's just traveling with you because it's your physical body connected to the earth. That is deeply, deeply rooted. That's our goal. Always the goal, right? But when you can't achieve the goal, give yourself some freaking grace. There's going to be times energetically your frequency doesn't resonate with the earth. For instance, when you're going through another awakening or energetic shift, these are times when your body, your energy, your chakras are receiving more life force as you evolve. So your connection's more to your subtle bodies, your upper chakras, not of the earth, right? So I know for me, doing this kind of work all the time, to really be rooted, I need like 2 days, no people. So I give myself 2 days to hermit, to not be around people, to call all my energy back and to sink back into the earth. So when I go and do my work the following week, I'm rooted and I know I've recalibrated basically. I've sunk back into my body. Because even if I do it every night after 6, 7 people a day, you've been hanging out up there most of the day. It's going to take a while to come back down. Then you go to sleep and you float out of your body all over again. So grounding is very, very important because it keeps you healthy. If you are not in your vessel, you're leaving your vessel open to have other energy kind of take it up. And that's when we start to get overstimulated. And a lot of times we're overstimulated because we're housing energies that aren't ours. Are you done? Are you good? My dog, she's like rolling around like crazy behind me. And I'm like, what are you doing? Question. I'm going to go more into grounding here in a second. So I'll ask if you have questions after I touch on that, but let's talk about centering. Centering is a process of aligning your chakras, cleansing them, opening them. This is what allows your channel to be pure, to be clear, right? I feel like the process of grounding, centering, and shielding is where a lot of students are like, this takes forever. You're not alone, I promise. When I first started, it took me probably like 20 minutes to go through this, maybe 25 even. There was times where I would ground and I'd be like, whoa, this is taking me so long. And I was like, dang it, now I got to pull all this earth energy up and I have to open each chakra one at a time. And I would get impatient instead of enjoying the experience. And now when I get the time to ground and center and shield and I'm not rushing through my morning like crazy, I love it. Because it will help you. I tell you, this makes such a drastic difference in your channel. Drastic. The days where like the universe isn't like all over and I have my daily routine of grounding, centering, and shielding before my first reading or healing of the day, I notice a drastic difference in how I feel participating in the healing. And I say participating because spirit's healing them regardless. This energy is flowing because your intention's there. But how much you are actively present and how strong your intention is has a lot to do with how connected you feel, right? It's the same as if we're praying, right? If we're like, thank you for this food. Much different than if you take the time and you're actually sitting there and you do pray, not to be religious, but it's like the closest kind of like that intention. When you take that time to have that patience to connect with it, you feel a different energy of gratitude. You have gratitude either way, but you feel a different energy of gratitude. Or even if you say, hey, I hope you have a great day versus, hey, I really hope you have a great day. There's something that feels different about it because your intention was more present. It was more active. The more present you are, the more aware you are, the more you are going to feel this channel. I promise, I promise, I promise. So if you lose patience with the process of grounding, centering, and shielding, please know I think every single one of us has gone through this, and it's like a rite of passage. Let yourself get frustrated, let yourself lose patience, but also remind yourself, hey, this means I'm doing exactly how it's supposed to be. And one day I won't feel this way. And one day I'll look forward to doing this every morning. And I'll be honest, I usually do this when I'm in the shower. I like to do it standing because I feel the water cleansing over my body and I feel my feet kind of sinking into the earth. And then I visualize like the water moving through each chakra to cleanse each chakra. When we get to shielding, shielding is the process of setting an intention. Again, that beautiful phrase, set the intention of protecting your energy from all harmful, unwanted, and unneeded energies, whether they be of your own making or of others. You can visualize the shield like a bubble of light. I recommend visualizing a pyramid of white light or a prism of rainbow fluorescent light all around you. The reason being is pyramids, sacred geometry, but also the foundation of all geometric structures. Okay. And it's the most supportive energy. Pyramids, triangles, three, you see three everywhere. It's all made up of three, but it's also very supportive energetically. If you push on one side, it pushes on the other, it pushes into the other. Whereas if you have a square, you push on one side, it collapses. It all shifts. Okay. You don't have that with triangles. There's supportive energy. So at the end of the day, it's your intention. I find a lot of people struggle to visualize a pyramid. That's why I say if you're starting, start off with that. Start challenging yourself to visualize the structure. Maybe visualize yourself sitting in a square and seeing lines come up from each corner and all of them touching in the middle above your head. That's a very great way to practice seeing that image instead of being like, okay, what's a pyramid look like? Let me put myself in it. Like, no, let's build it in your mind, give yourself some grace, because as you're building it though, you're building a relationship with what it feels like to be in it as well. Okay. So sit in that square and visualize lines going up from each corner, and all the lines come together in the very middle, and you're sitting in this pyramid of light. Okay. And you know that you are safe and that you are protected. And we'll talk about shielding on the following pages some more. Okay. These are some examples of centering and grounding. So just slow, steady breaths, and you can visualize a root chakra coming down. I actually have a meditation that I'm going to post for you guys. That's a guided grounding meditation. I'll post that in the group chat in the next few days. I think it should be on this computer. If not, it's on my hard drive. But it's a guided grounding and centering meditation. So you can practice it. I'll walk you through the visualization. And this is a good practice because it's going to have you breathe into the center of your being. And then we're going to connect down to the earth. And then you pull the earth energy up through each chakra. And you feel each chakra cleanse and get grounded and purified with the earth. And then it goes to the heart. And then we go up to the sky. We pull the sky or the divine energy down. It clears the upper chakras. And both the earth and the sky meet in the heart space. So above and below. The earth and the divine, your subtle body and your physical experience connect in the bridge, the heart. You are the bridge. You're the bridge between your physical experience, the ego, and your higher self or spirit. Okay. And it all comes from the heart space. So we're going to walk through that. And then I walk you through a shielding. So if I can't find the recording, it's really quick. It's like 20-minute meditation, and I'll record it again and put it on there. It should be on here though. I think some of you might already have it. Yeah, okay, it's on there. That's good. Ooh, gave myself a little heart attack for a second. So we'll go through that, and I want to go over shielding with you very quickly because we are getting close on time. Wow. Yep. Oh, perfect. We're ending right on time though, which is good. Shielding, when you're visualizing a pyramid or a ball of white light around you, please, 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 please visualize the back body. Visualize it going behind you. The reason being, your front body is your conscious mind. It's what you are consciously aware of. Your back body is your subconscious and what's hidden or what you do not see. A lot of times when we have pain on the back of our neck, behind our chest, our spine, behind our hips, it's energetic attachments. It's things that are draining our energy and we don't see them. Doesn't mean they're bad. It's just like walking in the woods and getting a mosquito bite. Like, it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm doing something wrong. I have a lot of students say that, like, why do I keep having attachments? Because you're learning. You're learning. I did too. But difference is, my practitioner, I felt shamed. I felt very shamed by it. So please know that, like, it's so normal. It's so immensely normal. There's no shame about having attachments or attracting attachments. And it happens in day-to-day life, whether you're exploring energy work or not. Attachments are basically holding on to other people's energy, or it's a manifestation of an imbalance that you have, and it's sucking the life out of you, basically. It's kind of like, oh, my anger at this person is so much that it's draining me. Well, that draining feeling is an attachment. That is your anger manifested, and it's hiding in your back, and you wonder why your back hurts. Well, it's probably where you hold all of this anger. But the other reason we get attachments when we start exploring this stuff is because you're like moth to flame. You're this beautiful white light that's starting to feel all this love, starting to feel all this excitement of exploring these higher states of consciousness, and you're shifting your energy. You're becoming so much more mindful of your energy, of how your thought changes your cellular structure and your vibration, that you're choosing to be more positive. So these things that want positivity, you're like, oh my God, flame, moth, perfect. Let me go get some of that white light. And they're attracted to you. And that's okay. But the more we shield, the more, one, you're going to be aware of when these things are coming in, but two, you're also going to be able to cleanse it off you when you ground, center, and shield every day. And your shield's going to protect you from getting any of them in the first place. So just know that these attachments, And honestly, every single client I see every single day has at least one attachment. It's just normal. It's normal. It's literally like a bug bite. Everybody's like, I'm sure I have one right now. Pretty sure I have one anyway, like at the middle of my back. And it's just an energy of like being drained. That's it. It's just when we feel drained, we probably have attachments, and sometimes they take a little time to remove, and sometimes we get them all, right? My people where they're harder to remove is typically because they're self-manifested and they're not ready to release that limiting belief or emotion yet. So we just keep sending healing and healing and healing until the little leech wants to let go, and then it lets go. But it's just an energy. It's the same as like attachment or not. It's just a label. It's a label for an imbalanced energy that is stopping you from feeling light. So when we're doing our shielding, the intent, this is the, you could call it an incantation, a prayer, a manifestation, an intention, whatever you'd like. This is the prayer that I say when I'm shielding myself. I charge the shield to protect me. No harmful energy may enter. Only energy of my highest good may reach me. I charge the shield to protect me from physical, energetic, and psychic attack, harm, pollution, bad intention, and attachment, whether it be of my own making or of others. With this intention, my shield is set, strong, and complete. Okay? You could use it as a framework. You could just be like, hey, my bubble of light doesn't let anything in. Bam, boop, bop, done. Whatever works for you. Whatever floats your boat, because your intention is what's going to make it strong. If you think your bam, boop, bop bubble does it, then it does it. Bam, boop, bop all the way, okay? Really, I'm not even joking, but just please make sure to expand it towards the back of your body, because we're more likely to have attachments on the back of our body because it's what we're not consciously paying attention to. And it's not the part of the mind we spend most of our time in. So always make sure that you are allowing your shield to expand all around you. And maybe even visualize yourself spinning in your pyramid or in your bubble of light, knowing that you are fully surrounded by it. Or allow that bubble to spin all the way around you, or maybe even just stretch your arms and like sense and feel that bubble of energy, that pyramid of energy move in all directions. Okay? Which kind of brings me to my next point. As you're placing your shield, take that time to sense your energy. Sense the energy around you. Even if you're like, I don't sense anything, take that moment to create a little ball in your hands and just feel the energy between your hands. It might be this close, it might be this close, it might be a full wingspan, okay? But allow yourself to sense your energy. And we'll talk about this more in a few weeks when we get to the aura, and we'll Reiki level 1 will really start to make the ball and practice and play with energy, and we'll do it again there too. So today's just a lecture day. Sorry. Due diligence, my dears. And so as you're shielding, you want to sense your energy. And if you have any changes in temperature, like cool spots, or if it feels bumpy, or if it feels, or you see like tears, whatever you sense in whatever way it translates, use your own breath or the intention of having white light in your hand. And, oh, I repair that little hole right there. That's clean. My shield is strong. Or you just push it away and be like, nope, my bubble, my pyramid, everything's perfect, right? And just kind of sense below you, behind you, around you, all directions, and make sure that there's no rips, tears, or imbalances, right? And if there is, have the intention to remove and seal them with ease. Don't be like, oh my God, that looks so hard. That's a limiting belief. Your ego's going to put it there. Guilty. When I first started healing, I was like, this thing looks so difficult. How am I going to do it? And I got to a place of like, it's not cocky, it's energy. I can do anything. And I just have that intention. Like, I can do anything. I'm limitless. The only thing limiting me is the belief that I can't. You can clear it, all of it. And when you start to have that lens, you will be very like potent in your healing realm. You'll be baffled by the things that occur for sure. But that's a very, very, very brief overview. We are going to practice this together when we get into Reiki level 1 and you guys start to practice. I'm going to walk you through the grounding, the centering, and the shielding when we prepare to do sessions. I'm going to really walk you through that process, okay? As a group, and then you can practice your healing on yourself. And then in level 2, we're going to do it again, okay? Cool. Okay. We're going to stop there because that's next week. Wow, 3 hours is perfect to get through it all. That's amazing. Any questions in the last 10 minutes? Comments, anything you want more information on?
So you introduced a lot of things to do, breath work, mindfulness, all kinds of like techniques. Like how, like, what should our approach be to kind of getting into all of this? Because would be like a full-time job to do it all every day.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Let's look at it with the lens of this is my playtime. I don't have to do it all. I can do whatever I want in this time, right? Because when we look at it as like this is my time to explore instead of I feel like I have to do this to be able to do this, it's going to make it that much more enjoyable. So start there. Guilty, like so guilty. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to journal, I have to meditate, I have to do yoga, I have to do this. And then I got to a place of like, let me do what brings me joy, what lights me the F up right now. Because if I'm doing things that don't, I'm already sacrificing the alignment of my 5 bodies. Because if you're like, I don't feel like doing it, it doesn't feel like something that resonates for me. Like yoga, not really feeling it right now. That's fine. Maybe explore breath work. Breath work, weird. Let me try another one. Maybe it's just the breath. Okay, this one was okay. I might come back to it. Let me see meditation. Do I like guided? Do I like mantra? Do I like sound bowls? Right? A lot of people I feel are really drawn to sound right now because we're in a very heart opening space in the collective, a lot of self healing, and that is heart based. Okay. So sound music is very emotional. So if anything, and I'll post it right as soon as we get off here. If anything, I highly recommend playing with some sound meditations, just listening to sound bowls and the frequencies, and start with guided meditations and start with like 10-15 minutes, right? Start just giving yourself a short amount of time because it's not only the practice, it's about making yourself comfortable in that space. And some people struggle to sit for 3 minutes in silence. So 10 minutes might feel like 40. And you're going to be like, oh my God, like, am I really going to be able to do this? And so give yourself the grace of playing with it. It's your playtime. You don't have to do everything in one day. 15-30 minutes, great. You get an hour in, awesome. But the time is relative to how your energy moves, not to your experience, right? Like I know for when I first started, I would spend 3 hours like at the end of the day playing with tarot cards, journaling, meditating. It was my playtime though. I enjoyed it. You ask me to do that now after a full day of healing? No, let me disassociate and watch Netflix and eat food on the sofa, right? Like there's a part of me that's like, nope, let me be human right now, right? So with your phase of life, the amount of time you dedicate to it might be different. Whereas this morning, I'm on a walking pad with affirmations, working on work, but also listening to meditation music. And like that's my spiritual time. Like I enjoy that. That's how it stimulates me now. It will change throughout your life. I recommend starting with sound bowls, listening to them, and I recommend start with guided meditation and box breath. Okay. Do box breath when you're laying in bed at night for 5 minutes, right? It will help you relax and go to sleep. Do your sound bowl meditations or listen to affirmations. I'll share my affirmation and my frequency playlist with you guys on that group. The affirmation playlist I'm going to share with you is the exact playlist I made and listen to this day, but I made it when I had my near-death experience and was paralyzed. It's what I listened to shift my frequency. So it's something I used myself. I still use to this day. I love it. I continue to add to it. And take what you like, leave the rest, create your own playlist off it. I don't care. Enjoy your journey.
So what's the difference between a sound bowl and like meditation music?
Meditation music is what you hear when we're in a healing session. That frequency of 432 sounds more like a song, whereas a sound bowl is just going to be it's going to be one tone at I would get it out if they weren't like in a huge stacked box, but I have them here. But you'll notice a difference. Sound bowls are like one bowl's tune for 3 to 5 minutes, and then they go to the next chakra. And sometimes they play 2 at once, and sometimes they play a few of them, and it creates this combination of frequencies that changes your vibration in your body. Whereas the music you listen to in a healing session is one frequency. and it's mainly focused typically on shifting you into theta state. So I use 432, which is known for deep sleep and relaxation, and it shifts the mind into a theta state, which is a mild trance state, which is the state everybody goes in with or without music in a Reiki session. I find it very beneficial though, because a lot of people explore Reiki for stress and anxiety and for sleep. And so to kind of help their nervous system feel safe and relaxed, having that additional tool there really benefits the session. My other questions. Did that answer your question though?
Yeah.
Woohoo. Okay. Anything else? No? If you come up with questions, post them on the group. Otherwise, I hope you guys.
Well, no, I do have another question. So will the files and stuff be like, I'm on the group thing now and I don't.
I will
like,
post
are the-
everything there. This recording is going to be
Okay.
posted on there. And the workbook, once I figure out why it's not letting me put the PDF on there, I'll put it on there and I'll dig up the meditations. I'm going to listen to it myself first and see if I still like it. If not, I'm going to record a new one. Because I think it's like 5 years old. So if not, I could just record it again. So I'm going to listen to it really quick. I don't know what I sounded like back then. And I'll put that meditation on there. And there was something else I was going to put on there. Oh, my playlist that we were just talking about. I should write this down.
Affirmations, yeah.
Yes, the affirmations, the frequencies. So 2 playlists. I'll know what I mean because they're the only 2 playlists I really listen to. 2 playlists. Meditation. Workbook. And this recording. Perfect. Okay. I think that's everything, right? Awesome. Okay, my dears. I hope you guys have a fabulous weekend. Congratulations on completing class 1 of 9.
Yay.
And I will see you next Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank
Later,
you.
Gator.
Bye.
Bye.